came here to challenge myself, to fight all comers, and I feel like I've done that. I think I'm gonna leave this belt in the ring here for the next crew to pick up and retire my title tonight.
Tonight, the Ultimate Fighting Championship looks to crown a new middleweight champion. Tito Ortiz versus Wanderlei Silva for the UFC Middleweight Championship of the World. Plus, East meets West as the toughest full-contact event in sports today returns to the land of the rising sun.
Let's get it on! Come on!
This is UFC 25. It's time to get real.
And once again, it is time for us to go global. Yoyogi Gymnasium in beautiful Tokyo, Japan, is the home tonight to the world-famous Octagon, where the Super Bowl of mixed martial arts takes to the road. As we get set for UFC 25, an opportunity tonight to crown a new middleweight champion here in the land of the rising sun, Tokyo, Japan. Welcome inside Yoyogi Gymnasium in Tokyo, Japan. Along with my partner, the Olympic gold medalist Jeff Blatnick, I'm Mike Goldberg. UFC 25 will feature some familiar faces. Laverne Clark, Joe Slick, Eugene Jackson, Ron Waterman, all on the card tonight. But what we are here for, most importantly, is to give the middleweight belt to either Tito Ortiz or Wanderlei Silva.
Well, Tito Ortiz brings a host of skills into the octagon. Great wrestling background, good hips. He can dominate people once he gets on top of them. And he also has great standing skills. Wanderlei Silva, Brazilian background, but he also has great standing skills. This really does promise to be a great fight.
Jeff, the last time the middleweight belt was on the line between Frank Shamrock and Tito Ortiz, the fight went nearly the full distance, and many UFC diehard fans consider it the greatest fight in UFC history. Tito Ortiz tells us he continues to get better and better.
He is.
Tito, trying to get the middleweight belt tonight, is backstage with the third member of our broadcast team. Here's James Wormy.
Thank you very much, Goldie. Joined right now by Tito Ortiz. He's going to fight again for the middleweight championship. Tito, a couple hours from fight time. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's great to see you back in the octagon. We haven't seen you since last September. Tito, a lot of athletes think that a loss can sometimes be better than a win in certain situations. Do you feel that way as far as your fight with Frank Shamrock?
Yes, because then I'll go ahead and I'll learn exactly what my mistakes were when I fought Frank Shamrock, which it did a little bit of conditioning and relaxing in bad positions, and that's what he caught me with an elbow, and I was in a bad position. I should have been in that position, and I should have worked harder on my cardio, which now I've learned to work on my cardio and my striking, so that's a loss. I mean, it's tremendous to an athlete. I mean, because once you learn from the loss, then your chances of losing again is pretty much slim to none.
We've noticed, I mean, everyone has noticed, it's a leaner, it's a meaner, it's a more focused Tito Ortiz. You've devoted your life to this career. Tell us what changes you've made in your personal and professional life to make you the best mixed martial artist possible.
Wow, that's a lot to be said for my name. I pretty much just stopped partying. I mean, before I'd go out and go drinking in bars and stuff like that. I stopped doing that. I pretty much want this to be my life for the next couple of years. So I want to be the best I can be at this. And I want to prove to people that once you set your mind to things, it can be accomplished. And I've accomplished a lot this year with Abu Dhabi World Submission Championships. And hopefully tonight, I'll become on top. We'll see what happens.
Tito had 3 submission victories at Abu Dhabi, knocked out 3 of the toughest guys around, too. Tito, let's talk about Wanderlei Silva, your opponent tonight. He's tough. He can strike. Without giving away too much, tell us how you're going to approach this fight.
I don't know. I'll probably maybe use my wrestling ability. I mean, my wrestling ability is a lot better than his, but he's a tough opponent. I mean, John Peretti made a beautiful match of getting him. There's anybody tougher than him. Wanderlei Silva is the top guy at my weight. So it's just another road I'm going to have to walk down, and hopefully I'll stand on the top of the pillar at the end of the fight.
No easy fights for this guy, and another tough one tonight, but someone will be crowned a new middleweight champion. We want to thank Tito Ortiz for stopping by this evening. Tito, best of luck, and thanks tonight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Guys, back to you.
Worm, thank you very much. The first 5 fights, we have 6 tonight, will be non-title fights, so they will be 3 5-minute rounds. The title fight between Silva and Ortiz, 5 5-minute rounds.
And the round winner will get a 10-point score. The opponent 9 or less, depending on whether it was a dominating round. That's based on effective striking, grappling, and aggressiveness.
So the same criteria as we have always used in the UFC. We have 4 officials, Mr. Nishi, Mr. Umake, and Mr. Samajima from Japan, and then Tony Mullinax traveled from the States. He will be our 4th judge if judges' decisions are rendered. Lightweight bout between Laverne Clark and Yoji Oishi. What do we see here?
Well, Oishi was a late replacement for Takase, who had a leg injury and had to withdraw, so we don't know a lot about Oishi. Has a wrestling background. Laverne Clark, tremendous stand-up skills, great in the guard, and we haven't really seen him tested yet.
Nor have we seen Joe Slick tested tonight. Will he be tested by Minowa?
Well, Minowa has a Pancrase background. Certainly he's going to be very strong in submissions. Slick, that win over DeLucia, we really never got a chance to see what skills he brings in.
That'll be one of our middleweight matchups tonight here at UFC 25. Now, in the heavyweight division, Ron Waterman to take on Satoshi Honma.
Don't know a lot about Honma. Certainly coming in from Japan, know that you can bet on the fact that he's going to know some submission skills. Ron Waterman is 1-1-1. He has knocked people out. He has been knocked out. This is a big fight for him.
Coming off a bicep injury, he says he's at 100%. Eugene Jackson has been spectacular. 2 wins, both by knockout. Tonight, he gets Kakuta.
Well, Kakuta I know a lot about because of his judo background and the fact he was very successful in Pancrase. So you know he's going to understand submission and the grappling game. We've never seen Jackson tested in the grappling game. He's a great stand-up man.
This could be a spectacular matchup in the middleweight division. Yoji Anjo, who lost in his previous Octagon appearance against a newcomer, Murilo Bustamante, one of the top Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys in the world.
Well, Bustamante went with Tom Erickson for 40 minutes, and that says an awful lot. He also knocked out Jerry Bolander. I think Anjo's going to have his hands full.
And then for the middleweight championship, Tito Ortiz and Wanderlei Silva.
Great stand-up fighters. This is going to be a war. I can't wait to watch this one.
We will look forward to that. And the winner of this matchup between Ortiz and Silva will be the new middleweight champion in the UFC, and it will happen here in Japan. A wonderful card put together here in Tokyo tonight. Our matchmaker once again is John Peretti. He's backstage with our James Wormy.
Thanks, Goldie. Getting ready for the Eugene Jackson versus Kakuta fight. Eugene 2-0 in the octagon, 2 knockouts in the octagon. John, he's been suffering from the flu this week. Is that going to affect his performance?
Of course it is. He's dehydrated, and he's going to have muscle problems, probably cramping. It could be a very bad performance for him. He didn't expect this.
We don't know a lot about Kakuta. We do know that Renzo Gracie said he's the toughest guy he's ever fought. How's Eugene going to handle this guy?
Well, Eugene is a lot stronger than Renzo. And Eugene can hit, and Renzo can't hit. So, you know, he's got attributes that Renzo doesn't have. He doesn't have nearly the ground skills, but he's in there for real, you know? It's a fight.
Just as a side note, John, there was a little bit of confusion with the Laverne Clark fight. He was originally scheduled to fight Daiju Takase, a UFC veteran. Takase went down with a leg injury. Oishi came in. We don't know a lot about him except for the fact that he took the fight short notice. How do you see that one going?
Well, you know, it looks like a bad mismatch. Oishi comes in at the request of Akira Shoji. Akira Shoji, a great fighter in himself. I think Laverne is just too big for him and too strong, and he's never fought anybody of this caliber. Unfortunately, Takase was also a second choice. Uno was supposed to fight Laverne.
And what exactly happened with that, John?
Well, I think Uno backed out, and then UFCJ put Takase in. I think Takase is too weak, actually, for Laverne. The match was with Uno, and I think Uno has done very well against Andre Pederneiras. So Uno is a force to be reckoned with. It would be a great fight between Laverne Clark and Uno.
Let's talk a little bit more about Laverne Clark, John. We've seen him in a couple alternate bouts. He has been in the main draw before. This guy loves to swing. He's undefeated in the octagon. Tell us more about Laverne Clark. I think we're going to see good things from him. Am I right?
Laverne Clark is a killer. Laverne Clark is our greatest weapon. He's our professional boxer. And Laverne Clark has rocks in each hand. He's menacing. He comes out to fight. He's got no quit in him, and he fights guys who are technically a lot better than him. He's difficult to tackle because he used to be a wrestler, and he can bang with each hand. You know, I think we're going to see him a long, long time.
Another great job done by UFC matchmaker John Peretti. We want to congratulate him on a new baby boy. Enzo, back to you guys.
I'm surprised it wasn't Jeff or Mike, but congratulations to John Peretti. Our lightweight bout will start things off this evening between Yoji Oishi and Laverne Clark.
With his victory in the alternate fight at UFC 16, Laverne Fists of Fury Clark became the first pure boxer to win in UFC competition. He returned at UFC 18 and again took the alternate bout victory to bring his UFC record to a perfect 2-0. At UFC 20, Clark finally jumped into the main draw, taking on Brazilian Fabiano Iha. As usual, Laverne came out swinging. He scored with a flurry of punches, opening up a sizable cut on the jiu-jitsu specialist. The fight was stopped, and Laverne Clark had upped his UFC record to 3-0. He returns to the octagon tonight after a layoff of almost a year in search of his fourth victory.
All right, Laverne Clark working his way into the octagon here in Japan. Now, the interesting thing about Laverne Clark, he is 26 years old. He is a boxer at heart. He's a Golden Gloves boxer. He is the best pure puncher that we have right now in the UFC. But what we need to remember, he has wrestled since age 9. So if it does go to the mat, he's able to defend himself.
Well, I'm not sure he's got a guard. I've never seen Laverne Clark have to employ the guard, but certainly he can take someone down. And what we've really seen out of Laverne Clark is his ability to counter a takedown shot. A couple of his fights, he was able to stop people underneath him and then employ strikes to really, inflict some damage and prevent them from really trying that technique again. That's where I've seen his good wrestling skills really brought to bear, is with the sprawl.
Well, his boxing training is done with Alvino Pena, who has trained top boxers like Michael Nunn. He, of course, also fights with Pat Miletich. He will fight tonight. Yoji Oishi, and John Peretti visited with our James Wormian, somewhat told us about how Oishi ended up taking this fight. We can tell you he's 22 years old. He is a student here in Tokyo, and even though he's a Japanese fighter, he has spent a lot of his fighting career in wrestling competitions.
He has a wrestling background both in Greco-Roman and in freestyle, and much like the Raw team here in the United States, he is part of the Raw Japanese wrestling team, and I would expect you see him. If he has a wrestling background, he's going to have a good base. He's going to be set on his feet. And really, I wonder what kind of a strategy he's going to employ, trying to get Laverne Clark to come in at him so that perhaps he can get a clean shot at a takedown.
All right, Oishi getting set to take on Laverne Clark. And for these Japanese fighters, they are defending their home turf in front of hometown fans. The tale of the tape shows 26-year-old boxing expert Laverne Clark, 5'11", 169 to the 5'8", 156, so a reach advantage against Oishi. Laverne Clark is nicknamed Fists of Fury. That describes his strengths.
It certainly does. He's a professional boxer. He's got a wrestling background, so he's going to have great defense. The biggest thing is he's also got a lot of experience in the octagon.
He was a wrestler for many years, and that is the strength of this young man, Koji Oishi.
And traditionally, Japanese lightweights have been extremely tough in the sport of wrestling. But he is outsized, and he has taken this on short notice, so you have to wonder, how prepared is he? But as you said, it's in Japan. We used to call that home field advantage, and I certainly think the crowd will help him.
Well, our referee, as always, a member of our UFC team since UFC 2, is Big John McCarthy, making the trip to Tokyo. He has our first fight of the night underway.
There
Laverne Clark and Oishi.
Looked as though Clark was going to unload with a punch, and Oishi immediately looked for the takedown. There it is again. He tried the same thing. Clark's hips are tough.
And Clark has always been able to overwhelm his opponents. When he gets a chance, he is not afraid to reel off and throw strikes. Now, the story here is that this young man, Oishi, took the fight on short notice because of an injury to Daiju Takase, who showed up to apologize for not fighting Laverne Clark, but nonetheless comes in hoping to be in good shape. He ate that right uppercut a moment ago.
Yes, he did, because he kept his hands on his opponent's hips too long, allowing that nice opportunity, that angle to be created for Laverne Clark.
Now, Oishi trains, pardon me, Jeff, with Akira Shoji, one of the top fighters in Japan, so he comes from a good lineage.
No doubt, you have to surround yourself with great workout partners to test yourself and to learn. And you can see he's got great shots, but Laverne Clark's hips are superb. They're tremendous at sprawling and countering. But you can see Oishi's strategy here is to look for the takedown. He's trying to make Clark miss with a punch so that he has the opportunity to go underneath.
Well, certainly training with Pat Miletich in Davenport, Iowa, gives Laverne the opportunity to continue his wrestling skills every time he trains, and they may be tested here tonight against this 22-year-old student from Tokyo.
He's got him pushed up against the fence. You hear Big John McCarthy saying no grabbing the fence. That would be a foul if you grab it and hold it. Whether offensively or defensively, you're not allowed to grab the fence. But it seems he wants to stay close to Clark and take away, or at least limit, the kind of punching Clark can do.
Clark working the solar plex area right now. First of 3 5-minute rounds with 2:55 remaining in the first round. They separate, and this is where Laverne Clark can be dangerous because he can throw them with the best of them.
And this is where Oishi needs to be very careful. Doesn't want to walk into one of those punches. Clark has knockout power in both hands. And we've seen it in a number of occasions.
Now, he took it to jiu-jitsu stylist Fabiano Iha. He won at 131 by a referee stoppage at UFC 20. And Laverne 3-0 in the octagon, and starts with the left, but the shoot for a double knee opportunity for Oishi.
Started to find the range there. Clark connected with a combination, but Oishi immediately starting to become more aggressive, looking for the takedown.
Tried to get the left to go, and now they look each other over again. The one thing I'm noticing here in the early part is Oishi doesn't look like he's a guy who's going to throw them very often.
No, he doesn't look like he wants to strike with his hands at all, and frankly, I think that's a mistake. He has no background in boxing, and really, Laverne Clark's biggest asset is his hands and his boxing experience.
There he tried to unload on the right, and that is where Clark shows no fear, but now he's tied up, and now we're in Oishi's world, potentially.
He had a good double leg going there, but the fence saved Laverne Clark from being bowled over. Clark using the fence to keep him from falling. Smart move, good counter, keeps him on his feet, and right now it seems that Clark is winning this battle of standing.
Clark in all 10-4 in his mixed martial arts career. Loves the fact that he's in Japan. He had never been here before this trip. He said prior to the fight, I hear they're pretty good there. I guess you're moving up when the fight game takes you to the land of the rising sun. The audience here, you will hear there will be a collective hush in the background. It's almost like a tennis match is viewed in the States, Jeff. They really watch for the strategy that the two fighters employ when they take each other on in the octagon.
And out of respect is why they remain silent. It is almost as though their honor is manifested in how they maintain their emotions. So they tend to be a very quiet audience while the fight is going on.
Clark not able to do much from this position. 33 seconds remains in the first round. Laverne Clark, a lightweight matchup, our only lightweight bout on the card tonight, against Koji Oishi. And there's a left from close in range, but still Oishi has him tied up.
Interestingly, though, it doesn't look like Clark is dominating this fight at all. Oishi is putting up somewhat of a defense here, limiting Clark and what he can bring to bear in terms of skills. Looks like Clark might go for a takedown now.
Push off and back out.
Now, Clark definitely not able to employ his strategy for much time at all in that first round.
You could hear Pat Miletich in the corner telling Laverne Clark, push into him and then break off. Keep your distance. Bring your hands to bear.
How'd that feel? Good?
Oishi is going to definitely want to crowd him or continue to shoot on him. And we really haven't seen Clark take any wild punches yet. And he can't afford to because Oishi has enough talent as a wrestler that he can get a takedown if given the good opportunity.
You know, the one question that you always have when a fighter takes a match on short notice is his conditioning, but nothing in that first round did anything to gas, if you will, Koji Oishi because they didn't tangle on the ground in a position where your oxygen is dissipated.
Or there wasn't a big sprint or
Right.
spurt of energy anywhere during that first round. So I agree with you. I think both are very much in control of themselves, neither one extremely tired. I'll bet you most of that water was poured on his head there that you see running off the face of Oishi.
Oishi 13 pounds lighter, but didn't seem to be thrown around at all, if you will, by Laverne Clark, the lightweight out of Davenport, Iowa, in the first round. But this is where Clark likes to set you up. He wants to turn it into a boxing match. He's been able to do it in all 3 of his octagon appearances. This may be the most talented overall opponent, though, but I think you and I sit back today, Jeff, and we're still not sure because these Japanese fighters are as new to us as they are to our viewers at home.
Well, he seems to have been training, and once again, with a wrestling background, he's unafraid of walking in. I mean, it's what you learn in any physical sport, particularly one that's driven by competition like the sport of wrestling. There's that double leg takedown. Now we'll see how his grappling skills.
Now, you wondered if Laverne Clark has a guard. Perhaps we'll find out
We're
here.
going to find out right now. He's striking from that guard. Feet hooked inside. Look for him to try to elevate the hips of Oishi and try to reverse him, or at least get him to the side where he might be able to turn face and get back to his feet. Oishi thus far has not tried anything on top. Let's see what he'll try to do in terms of offense.
You know, what's interesting is I look at the history of the wins for Laverne Clark, 3 in the octagon. All have come against jiu-jitsu stylists. Josh Stewart at UFC 16, Battle in the Bayou. Then Frank Carrassi, a jiu-jitsu guy. So he's used to taking guys that can do this type of stuff to him, but he usually counters, Jeff.
He does a great job of countering, and we just saw a real good flurry. Now there's where some energy finally got burned up. Clark was on top, had double overhooks, threatened to roll Oishi. Then he kind of lifted him up with his feet. They went to the side, nice little scramble. Clark got back to his feet.
Being in a foreign country against a relatively unknown opponent, is there a different, and you've fought overseas throughout your wrestling career, Jeff, is there a little feeling of uncertainty for an American fighter, or once the gates have been closed, is it a situation where you know that the gates are the same as they are if they were opened and closed in Davenport, Iowa?
I certainly think when you're away, and particularly when everything you do, you hear foreign language, it's an effort to go out and find something to eat. When you walk down the street, it's not like home and you're comfortable and relaxed. It's sort of you're always taking something in and you can never really feel comfortable. And that's why they call it experience. Once you've gone through it, you know what to expect and you can prepare yourself more to handle it. I was thinking Laverne Clark was playing possum, trying to draw Oishi into him, but I think Clark now is the one that's starting to have a problem, and he's mounted by Oishi.
A moment ago, we noticed the breathing, too, of Laverne Clark, Jeff. It was with the open mouth, and there wasn't enough that has happened in this fight thus far that you would think Laverne Clark was fatigued, but he showed a little sign of it. Now, as you said, he could have just been playing possum.
Well, I think the only reason he might have gotten a little arm weary there was when he had the double overhooks. He held that position for a long time using arm strength. And perhaps that made him a little bit arm weary when he finally did get back to his feet. He bent over. It almost seemed like he was trying to draw Oishi close to sucker punch him. Oishi would have none of it, but then he backed up against the fence, and he clearly looked tired, and then bang. Oishi takes him down, mounts him, but is yet to really strike.
Wrap it up.
Now, Laverne Clark has to be careful here because one thing Oishi is good at is submission, trying to work the left arm.
Entangled arm,
Yep.
Looking for an entangled arm, but never secured it.
Now, Clark works in practice every day against some of the best submission people in the world, Pat Miletich, one of them. But yet he has not found himself in this position in his UFC career.
Well, he's in decent shape here. Oishi is yet to be able to really manifest an attack from this mount. He keeps looking at that left arm, trying to entangle it, but there you see the power of Clark when he decides to go ahead and use it. Literally threw Oishi off of him, and now he's caught in Oishi's guard.
Yeah, closed guard by Oishi, a little different than the guard employed a moment ago by Laverne Clark. Laverne single, 4 children, big-time boxing record. It's 62-6, his amateur boxing record, dating back to when he started boxing at 17 years old.
Watch for Clark now to back Oishi into the fence, limit where he can move, and thus negating some of the guard's effectiveness.
21 seconds remains in the second of 3 5-minute rounds here. Our first bout of the night from UFC 25. Yoyogi Gymnasium in Tokyo, Japan.
It seemed as though Oishi had opened a door, a couple of takedowns. He got to the mount, but he was unable to really get anything off during that mount position. But it seems as though he's got a little bit of offense going now, and it seems as though Clark has slowed and perhaps has fatigued somewhat.
Now, if you are scoring at home, the mount position that Oishi was able to take advantage of in the second round may have given the edge in the judge's mind to Oishi in that second 5 minutes.
It's going to be difficult. I mean, 2 takedowns plus achieving the mount is looked at as pretty darn good grappling skills. But once he got to the mount here, you see Clark hanging onto the head. Because he's down chest to chest, there's no room to really throw punches. And here he's trying to get himself upright, but Clark is wrapping him up, keeping him close. And then eventually what he'll do, besides grabbing the fence there, is he's going to entrap both of Oishi's arms and hang on to him. And when he did that, perhaps that's when Clark got a little arm weary and fatigued. But this long stint there, Oishi never really was able to get any real threat mounted against Clark.
Third and final round is underway here in Tokyo. Laverne Clark, Fists of Fury, undefeated inside the octagon, but has only really connected, that I can recall, with the one right uppercut. And it'll be interesting to see if he can box here in the third round. He desperately needs to try to get some type of attack started here, in your and my estimation, after the second round, down on points to Oishi.
Well, he looks
swings
like
and misses.
Looks like he's got his game face on right now, and those were 2 heavy leather punches. Those were bombs that he threw, and you could see when you miss with the bomb, you lose your balance. But Oishi was so concerned about the counter, he never got the takedown. But there, a nice clean double leg takedown. And now let's see what Oishi will do. Once again, Clark using the feet inside of Oishi's legs, trying to get the elevator going.
2 of the 3 fights in Clark's career, Jeff, have ended in 131 or less. The other went just under 7 minutes, so this is his longest duration of fighting inside the octagon. This is 4th appearance.
Oishi, in his attempt to pass and gain the mount, got reversed, and Clark now is on top. And once again, those are basically even moves. Takedown versus a reversal. I'm not sure how the judges are going to score that. And now Clark is much busier when he's in the guard in terms of strikes.
You know, Clark was busy, not overly damaging, but busy with the fists in the first round too, with the rabbit punches to the midsection of his opponent Koji Oishi.
Well, you could have had that second round a draw, because literally, I mean, a couple of takedowns and a mount, maybe favor Oishi a little bit, but Clark was able to fend off quite a few takedowns, got a reversal in there as well.
Right in front of our lightweight champion, Pat Miletich, who will defend his title the next time we gather in the UFC. More on that, though, later as we continue our night in Tokyo.
I mean, you could hear some of those body shots. Starting to see some bruising on the ribs of Oishi.
Like that, because he'll shove your arm across and try and choke you.
You can hear.
Well, right now, what Laverne Clark is doing is anticipating the possibility of having to go to the first decision in his life. And what a bonus. We talked about feeling like you against the world. Well, the world is his right now, Laverne Clark's, because his coach, Pat Miletich, is right there with him.
Why don't we listen to him for a little bit here? He gives great advice. Many people think he's the best in the corner.
Keep him against the cage. Don't let him get the angle. There you go. I know you can hit harder than that. Turn him back against the cage. There you go. Get that right arm through. That's all right.
Pat Miletich saying to Laverne Clark, I know you can hit harder than that. Probably because Laverne's hit Pat harder than that in the gym in Davenport. Pat may be a better coach than he is fighter, and that says a lot about his coaching ability, because he's one of the greatest fighters in the world.
Knees wide.
Good advice. Keep the foundation solid. Don't take risk that allows your opponent an opportunity. Miletich giving great advice.
Close guard position. Oishi and Laverne Clark. 135 remains in the match. And the ribs continuing to get a workout from the right hand of Laverne Clark.
Vern, you got a minute and a half. Minute 20.
And in terms of effective striking, not only is he throwing the harder punches, he's throwing the only punches really of this fight. So I would tend to think this is really, you know, faring well for Laverne Clark at this stage of the fight. And I'll tell you, I'm impressed with Oishi. I thought Clark would probably move right through him, particularly with short notice. But he's showing he's game.
Yep, he went ribs, 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 head. Ribs, 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 head. A technique that we have seen used in the UFC in the past, not by Laverne Clark, though.
Pat Miletich used to use that. Yep. Throw punches, and then change the location.
Get that arm free. Get that arm free. Keep working at it. He's going to try and take an arm. Be careful.
Right now, we're getting to a critical time for both of these fighters. 35 seconds remains.
Well, if you're going to steal the round, now's the time to do it. But I really think Laverne Clark will win this fight now based on this situation. Something really drastic has to occur for Oishi to pull this out. Laying there and just hanging on is not going to do it. But in terms of toughness, in terms of heart and gamemanship, Oishi gave Clark a tough fight.
Final 10 seconds, and now you can see the grimace on the face of Koji Oishi. Those punches starting to sink into the rib area. But what John Peretti said to James Wormy might be a mismatch was far from it as Oishi goes the distance with Laverne Clark.
Well, sometimes style matchups, sometimes the change of an opponent may have caused some confusion to Laverne Clark. You might come in there a little bit more conservative because you don't know the opponent.
I got the sense, and that's what I was kind of hinting to you, Jeff, when I talked about the different surroundings. I got the sense that Laverne Clark was not as comfortable being as aggressive as we have seen him be in fights past.
Well, it may be that the travel had an effect on him. Being in Japan, first time over there, has an effect. And as I said, experience is everything.
So our judges will render the decision. Will it be Clark? Will it be Oishi?
トニー・ムリナックス28対29ラバン・クラーク
There's two for
よ
Laverne
って
Clark.
ブルーコーナーラバン・クラークの判定勝ちです
And Laverne Clark wondering exactly what the PA announcer is saying, but what he has said is that Laverne Clark has won by a unanimous decision. So for the first time in his career, Laverne Clark goes the distance, and credit Oishi with an opportunity to show us that he had wrestling skills. Backstage with Worm is the winner, Laverne Clark.
Thanks, guys. Back here with Laverne Clark. Laverne, you're now 4-0 in the octagon. Wasn't a typical Laverne Clark victory, though, was it?
No, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank God. I'd like to thank my sponsor, John Peretti, my manager, Monty Cox. And, you know, if it wasn't for the Lord, I wouldn't be here. He brought me here, and He's taking me back home. But first of all, yeah, this wasn't Laverne Clark out there tonight. I came here and I fought within like 3 days. I got jet lag. You know, I'm not comfortable right now in my hometown. It's bedtime for me, but I still performed the best I could, and hopefully you guys invite me back and I'll perform better for you.
Laverne, it looked like you were a little bit over anxious with the right hand. Do you think you're a little bit ahead of yourself, a little overly aggressive maybe?
Well, does that go back to the jet lag too? My timing and everything was off. I was thinking quicker than what I was moving, and I wanted to put it all together. I probably need more time when I come here in advance. I'll come here a couple weeks before the fight instead of 1 week.
You're training with Pat Miletich out in Iowa. Do you feel comfortable on your back? You spent a lot of time on your back during that fight.
Well, I train with the world champion. I train with the best. We train all the way around, back, up, standing up, and everything, you know. So I try to do anything it takes to win.
Laverne Clark, 4-0 in the octagon. Back to you guys in the booth.
A sign of a champion is to win when you don't have your best stuff. Laverne Clark didn't have his best stuff tonight. Middleweight bout forthcoming. Joe Slick set to take on Minowa. That will be our next fight. Let's go backstage once again, though, right now. Checking with James Wormy.
Thanks, Goldie. Joined once again by UFC matchmaker John Peretti. John, we're getting ready to see Joe Slick go into the octagon again. He is 1-0 in the octagon. We have seen him before, but it was pretty short against Jason DeLucia last time here in Japan.
Well, a freak accident on DeLucia. You know, he fell on his leg, and that could happen. Got bent backwards, and Delucia's a great fighter in himself. Slick used to be a 270-pound Native American, now a 190-pound Native American, and all to the credit of Pat Miletich.
John, talk about what's going on out there in Iowa. It seems like guys are flocking there left and right. Is Pat that good a trainer? What's going on out there? What's the attraction?
Pat Miletich is considered the premier trainer now in the United States. Pat Miletich has everyone out there. Amaury Betech is coming out from Brazil to train with him. Mark Coleman, Randleman, they're all going to train with Pat. He's proved that he can do everything. Kick, punch, grapple, submissions, the whole thing. Everyone respects Pat.
High praise for Pat Miletich. Not only a great trainer, a great UFC lightweight champion. We're going to see him again on June 9th, the next UFC. Guys, back to you at the Octagon.
A little foreshadowing from James Wormy, June 9th in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Joe Slick will fight next here in Tokyo. Let's meet Joe Slick.
Middleweight Joe Slick is a freestyle fighter out of Pat Miletich's Iowa stable of mixed martial artists. Making his Octagon debut last November at UFC 23, Slick took on UFC veteran Jason DeLucia. Just seconds into the fight, Slick scored a takedown, landing DeLucia in an awkward position on his right leg. The fight was stopped immediately, and Joe Slick had won his UFC debut. He looks to continue his winning ways tonight.
It'll be interesting to see what skills Joe Slick possesses. He was born in Iowa City, Iowa, fighting out of Davenport, Iowa. His style is freestyle, and his trainer, as has been well documented, Pat Miletich. At UFC 23, here in Japan, the fight against DeLucia lasted only 1 minute and 12 seconds. It'll be interesting to see what Joe brings to the table, Jeff, here tonight.
Well, certainly cutting down in size, he must be realizing newfound quickness, newfound stamina, and perhaps newfound confidence. It'll be interesting to see what he does. He has a background in jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and boxing, but it's really something in which he picked up from Pat Miletich once he saw mixed martial arts competition. He doesn't have a formal background in any of those sports.
Now, pumped up is the punk, Akuhisi Minowa. 1-1-1 record, but this is the first time that he has entered the Octagon, and this is a different game.
Certainly is. The Octagon allowing full strikes. He has a bit of a pancrase background. They use open hands. And so I would tend to think that looking at this, he's got the edge in submission skills.
Tail of the tape, freestyle fighter Joe Slick, 22 years old, against Minowa, age unknown. Parts are known. He's from Japan. He is a bit lighter than the 6'1" Joe Slick.
Yeah, so he is giving up a little bit of weight, and in terms of punching power, that might have an effect on him. But I tend to think that, as we used to see, you know, Slick here, well-rounded, good submission specialist, but we really haven't seen his stuff yet. This is really going to be his baptism in the Octagon if it gets beyond 1 minute of the fight.
It'll be interesting to see if he's able to do that. Now, Minowa, the breakdown on him is that he's very good at submissions, likes the leg lock, has some stand-up skills.
Well, everybody has some stand-up skills, but look for him to be going down. He's going to want to go down to the ground and operate down there. That's where his background is.
So Big John McCarthy will be our referee once again. It will be 3 5-minute rounds in our first of 4 middleweight bouts on the card tonight, all culminating with the belt on the line, with Tito Ortiz and Wanderlei Silva still ahead from Tokyo this evening.
Well, both of these fighters look like they're in excellent shape.
So McCarthy gets it underway.
They're taking time to measure, finding range. Let's see who throws the first big punch and whether they have the confidence. Yep, he's going to look for the takedown. I figured he'd want to bring it down to the ground. Oh! A back-arching throw, what we call a double arm suplex.
Looking to put a quick submission in on the choke here.
Guillotine. I don't think he has it really sunk in there deep. He's got the legs locked.
Well, Joe's style, Jeff, is comprised of jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and boxing. His mixed martial arts competition record overall, 16-2-3 draws. So with jiu-jitsu comes submissions.
That choke appears fairly tight there. You can see Minowa wincing to try to get out of it. There's room to his left. If he looks left.
John McCarthy in perfect position, as always, to see if there is a tap. Minowa able to break the attempted guillotine.
And Slick immediately jumping to a submission. I thought it would be Minowa looking for the submission first.
This is the second time in the octagon for Joe Slick, second time in Japan. UFC 23 was the Delucia fight here in Tokyo. Just underway here in the first round. This young man, Joe Slick, has had the majority of his fights in the Extreme Challenge, where he is currently the #1 ranked light heavyweight.
Nice elbow by Minowa to the top of Joe Slick's head.
There's that Pat Miletich move. 2 to the ribs, 1 to the head. Couple of times. Joe Slick on Minowa. Minowa's longest fight was just under 12 minutes. That was his most recent in October of '99 in a Pancras event.
Nice guard there, unable to punch. And you can see Slick is very, very respectful of that guard, and Minowa very active with his guard, looking for submission locks, and it looked as though Slick just backed out of it. We know Minowa's not afraid to attempt to throw. He tried one already. There it is again. Little hip toss. See if he'll do it again. He needs to get that left shoulder under a little bit more. Inside trip. Nicely done. Nicely done.
Now we see some skills being displayed here by Minowa, Jeff.
That was a beautiful inside trip, what we call in wrestling. Maintain that overhook around the top of a person's arm while it's in the bear hug. And he's able to bring Slick down to the octagon surface. Eats a punch right there, but let's see what he tries to do. Is he going to pass the guard, or will he try to ground and pound here?
Now Slick had the closed guard a moment ago, now an open guard. And Minowa trying to stay active. Under 2 minutes remains in the first round, the first of 3 5-minute rounds. Mr. Nishi, Mr. Umaki, Mr. Samajima, and Tony Mullinex are referees. They have already rendered one decision. That was unanimous for Laverne Clark in our lightweight matchup that started the evening.
Elbow.
Just a rub to let him know that he's there. And another quick one. McCarthy with a good view of the action is Slick pushed up against the fencing.
And I'll tell you, that'll do as much as a punch, and you don't expend near the amount of energy using a short elbow. Now Slick's got his heels hooked in there on the hips. Let's see if he'll try to push him away or elevate him.
One thing that Joe Slick said about his opponent, as he said, another Pancras guy who fought Travis Fulton to a draw, he's probably pretty tricky on the ground. And it's interesting because Minowa has shown some wrestling skills that would kind of validate the statements that Joe Slick made prior to this matchup.
I figured, as you know, from that Pancrase background, that's the first things you learn how to do. And most of the Japanese are pretty fluent with their submission skills. Jiu-jitsu, of course, originating there.
And Frank Shamrock had some success in that particular avenue of the mixed martial arts world.
Ken and Frank.
Absolutely.
Both were king of Pancrase.
Frank's first fight was in the land of the rising sun as we think back to December of '97. Always a wonderful opportunity for the UFC to go global, as we have done again tonight. 10 seconds remains in the first round here from the Yoyogi Gymnasium in Tokyo, Japan.
Well, not a great deal of activity here. A couple short elbows by Minowa. Otherwise, pretty much stalemated there in the guard.
Well, sitting next to one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, partner, I know that when the throws are attempted, you don't mind seeing them. And early on, your guy Minowa attempted a big throw.
Oh, we like to hear bodies landing on the mat. I mean, that's the sound of wrestling, particularly Greco-Roman wrestling.
Let him fall back into it. If he won't give you the inside control, then you grab his wrist.
And here was that first attempt by Minowa to shoot the takedown, and Laverne Clark, Joe Slick, doing a great job of countering, and immediately goes into a double arm salto to try to bring Slick over the top, but instead Slick slaps on a beautiful guillotine choke. And I didn't think it was set really deep at first, but it certainly was. I think Minowa was trying to relax as you should do, and try to weasel your head out of there using small movement, and he eventually was successful with that.
In the first trip to Japan, Joe Slick admitted being a little nervous, almost suffering from what we had talked about with Laverne Clark. This time you would expect him to be more comfortable. Much different than the start of round one. Now Minowa is throwing them. Combinations by both fighters, both never landed.
Now he's in trouble. Let's see if he's using a knee here. Looks like he went back to the choke again.
Well, Slick has had the opportunity early in both round one and now both round two to attempt to land and finish this fight via the choke, via a submission. Great look from overhead, our camera crew from the Japanese television station, allowing us to be part of UFC J3, UFC 25. Our partners in Japan, always gracious and wonderful hosts.
In the lock position, this is Greco-Roman right here, over under, and there's the throw. Beautifully done. He is unafraid to use those hips, and he does it well.
It's not often we see a side mount. It doesn't last very long, though, as Slick quickly moves his opponent into the guard. I didn't think Minowa possessed punching skills until a moment ago. We saw him try to throw it. Interesting to see if he can chop Joe Slick down from inside Slick's guard, though.
I would like to see him sustain that kind of punching. Anybody can punch for, 3-4 punches really fast. It's a question of, can you do it repeatedly before a guy catches on to what you're doing or effectively defends it and then counter punches you. But that certainly startled Joe Slick. It came out of nowhere. It's a great tactic not to have done it up to then, particularly if you're not particularly strong at it. And that change of pace forced Slick back and opened up that takedown opportunity.
Almost to the midway point of our fight. Our fight duration scheduled for 15 minutes. We have almost had the two competitors go at it for 7.5 minutes, about 18 seconds away from the official midway point. The title fight will be 5-5-minute rounds later on tonight in the middleweight division between Tito Ortiz and Wanderlei Silva.
I'm a bit surprised. I thought Minowa would have a little bit more here on top, having that Pancrase background. But again, this is the first time we're seeing him. It's the first time we're really seeing Joe Slick in an extended fight.
112, the stoppage due to the knee injury suffered by Jason DeLucia in the last entrance into the octagon for Slick. He is well versed, though, in mixed martial arts competition, as this is 22nd mixed martial arts competition. As I mentioned earlier, most of those coming in extreme challenge. Slick up against the wall.
Boy, I tell you, you could bring a knee up here, pop your hips in. Whoa, what power! Entertaining, but not really effective there, but it was a great attempt by Minowa.
Minowa was trying to work for a potential submission on the heel, but then
there's the knee.
Joe Slick got the big elbow and broke him down real quickly from trying to sustain anything down on the lower limbs.
You can see how quickly John McCarthy's down there to inspect the choke and to see how well he's defending against that choke. He will not allow somebody to go unconscious without breaking this fight. So you can see how quickly he's in there.
You want to talk about the top coach right now in the game. The top referee by far in the game is Big John McCarthy. Been doing this a long, long time.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly, and certainly looking not only at our policies and rules, but particularly John McCarthy's performances. No injuries, no serious injuries in the octagon. But you're right, in terms of experience, I don't think there's another referee out there with nearly half of what Big John McCarthy has.
No question about it. 43 seconds now left in round number 2.
And the pace has slowed considerably here. Minowa really hasn't attempted a whole lot in the top position. There he's elbowing the legs of Joe Slick, but those aren't really powerful, and you have to wonder if that choke took a little bit out of him.
Now, I said this Japanese crowd would be extremely silent. You hear some chanting in the background. Some members of the U.S. Navy based in Japan have made it to the gymnasium tonight, so they are carrying out the American tradition of being loud and boisterous when they attend the Ultimate Fighting Championship. as the bell sounds, signifying the end of round 2.
Awful interesting round. We saw some punching come out of Minowa. We see continued guillotine choke attempts by Joe Slick. And it's anybody's guess who's ahead, though Minowa does have some takedowns.
I see this pickup and drop in this match, and it makes me think of Frank Shamrock and Igor Zinoviev.
That was from a double leg where he had full control of the hips. This one, he came over the top first and actually landed in control, able to turn and face Minowa right away. The key is you have to rotate him in the air so that he loses track of where his balance point is, so that while he's on the way down, he has no way of recovery. And this is, again, a very good attempt at a guillotine choke by Joe Slick, but Minowa eventually countered.
Double leg or not, still reminds me of the way Igor Zinoviev went down. That throw, if you will, that toss and landing ended the night with Shamrock and Zinoviev. But this is a middleweight matchup between Joe Slick and Minowa.
And that's why we like to say Greco-Roman is so exciting, is when a body gets that high in the air and travels and goes kaboom on the mat, it certainly gets everybody out of their seats.
Well, certainly it did a moment ago here in Tokyo. Now again, Minowa coming out in round 3 the way he did in round 2.
Burst.
Not afraid to exchange punches.
Bursts and he uses a jab
And then to shoot.
You know, to get the reach, and then he throws combinations, and that's why he's been effective.
I thought for a second there we were going to have an early choke attempt to start not round 1, round 2, but round 1, 2, and 3. But this time Minowa doesn't give away the head.
Might be looking for a neck crank there, but his legs caught up in a half guard by Minowa.
This has been close, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. It's been an interesting fight, a lot of strategy. I like the way Minowa came out punching like that, but now it's Slick in the mount. And he is upright. He has the opportunity to punch, and he trades it for a side mount. Not sure I would have done that. He seemed to be fairly effective there. Oh, hey, if you're going to do that, it's effective.
Absolutely. And now again, trying to land a guillotine. And there's a good knee. That connected. The knee got Minowa's attention. And here we go in the 3rd round.
Oh, nice kick by Minowa.
And that catches Joe Slick.
Oh, did it ever. What a cut. Oh, he's cut bad.
That was the kick a moment ago by Minowa.
John McCarthy's got it. I think John McCarthy's going to intercede here. There's an awful lot of blood.
And he is bleeding from the nose area as Minowa takes the top. 3:15 on the clock.
If it gets in the eyes and he can't see, expect to see John McCarthy step in.
It's up on the forehead. It's over. It appears to be the right eye.
There it is.
And there's the intercede of our referee, John McCarthy. He'll get some attention given to the cut on the forehead
I didn't see a tap.
of Joe Slick.
I didn't see a tap. I'm assuming this is a... Yeah, it appears that way. They're looking at him.
Let's take a look at how this one connects. Oh, my.
Bang. Nice setup.
And it is over. The fight has been stopped. And Minowa victorious over Joe Slick.
What a kick. Boy, he never telegraphed it at all. Didn't see it really coming. Never tried it once before. But boy, he picked his moment, and it was effective.
This is about my 15th UFC with you, Jeff. Second best kick I have seen inside the octagon. The only one better, Petey Williams, when he took out Big Mark Coleman.
Well, you don't see many kicks to the head because you give up so much if you miss. It's a high-risk maneuver. But Minowa set that up very, very well. It almost seemed like a 1-2. He kind of pushed him away, and then bang, up came that leg and caught him flush.
Hey, what great skills displayed by Minowa. Different tactics shown at different times. He came out trying to swing again. You said, all right, let's see if he can strike. Boom, all of a sudden, the kick to the head opens a huge gash over the eye of Joe Slick, and Minowa victorious in his UFC debut.
Yeah, he definitely disguised his strategy very, very well. He brought out different skills at different times and really sort of patterned the match that this is how I'll follow it. Right there, bring the hands up.
Boom.
And boy, did he bring that. It was almost the shin that caught him on the side there.
Now, it's almost as if he got him with the shin even, a little lower than the foot, and that opens up Joe Slick over the left eye. Slick has been defeated. Well, our third man on the broadcast team, James Wormy, told us earlier that we will see you Friday, June 9th at the Five Seasons Center in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The fight we have waited for will now be contested. For the heavyweight championship, Kevin Randleman to take on Pedro the Rock Hizzo, and Pat Miletich will defend his lightweight title. And there he is, Kevin Randleman, our UFC heavyweight champion, who first had a chance to win the belt back at UFC 20 against Boss Rutten. He lost that decision. But the last time we were in Tokyo, he took on Petey Williams of the Lion's Den, and Kevin Randleman was able to take advantage of Williams on frequent occasion, and he was awarded with the heavyweight championship belt. He will defend that title on June 9th in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, against this man, Pedro the Rock Hizzo. The Brazilian was great in Brazil, knocking out Tank Abbott. Then at UFC 18, The Rock took on former champion Mark the Hammer Coleman. Again, he won the decision. UFC 20 against Trey Telligman, and The Rock threw the hammers on frequent occasion. And then he moved up the heavyweight ladder in Japan. Last time we were here, a KO of TK Tsuyoshi Kusaka. The matchup is set for Friday, June 9th. Also that night, Pat Miletich defends his lightweight title. Pat Miletich is backstage with our James Wormy.
Thank you very much, Goldie. Joined right now by UFC lightweight champion of the world, Pat Miletich. Very exciting news to announce. Pat has signed to defend his title on June 9th. That's going to be the next UFC, June 9th. Going to take place in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, your backyard, Pat. What does it feel like to fight at home?
I perform well at home, and it's very exciting to go back there. I'm going to put on a very good show, I'm sure.
Pat, you've been out for a little while. I know you were banged up a little bit. You healed? You fine? What's going on?
I'm getting there right now. I've been training for about 2 weeks, just working my way back into it. My back was bad for about 2 months before my last fight. Took the fight. I'm kind of that way. I don't back out on fights, and you know, it's just a matter of making sure that I'm healed fully, and so I can go out and perform for the people.
Well, it's great to have you back in UFC competition. Pat, let's shift gears right now and talk about a couple of your stable guys that fought here tonight. First of all, talk about Laverne Clark and his victory tonight.
Laverne was just doing what he does best, and that's strike, stand on his feet, and do his thing. Fought a very tough guy. The guy had good takedowns. Laverne stuffed him for a while and got a little tired toward the end. Verne didn't train like he quite should have for this fight, and it's a good message to him, though. He's already told me that he plans on staying in the gym for his next fight and coming in and getting ready.
And Joe Slick with a disappointing loss tonight. Tell us about that one.
It was just a back-and-forth fight. That guy's a very good fighter. Joe had a couple of really tight chokes on him. A guy did a great job of getting out, and the kick that landed really wasn't that hard of a kick, but Jeremy Horn and I believe really in our hearts that the shoe caused the cut. You know, anytime the laces scrape across your head or impact on your head, it's going to cause a problem like that, and it's why they tape the gloves in boxing so the laces don't cut people.
Pat, a lot of fighters are migrating to Iowa to train with you. A lot of them look up to you and your skills as a stand-up and ground fighter. What is it out there that you're teaching them, or can you tell us?
It's basically just work ethic and a combination of, you know, I've had a chance to be taught by Sergio Monteiro in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The guy's very skilled, taught me a lot of great things. I wrestled my whole life, trained with pro boxers for years and years, and so it's just a combination of things and the work ethic that makes the difference.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Pat's going to defend his title, as we said, June 9th, Cedar Rapids. Get your tickets, check it out. Pat's back, and the lightweight title is going to be on the line. Back to you guys.
The heavyweight title will be on the line that night also. Heavyweight matchup forthcoming, Honma against Waterman. Ron Waterman making his 4th appearance inside the octagon. Let's take an inside look at the H2O man.
Massive heavyweight Ron Waterman made his UFC debut at last May's UFC 20, taking out overmatched Chris Kondo in only 28 seconds. He returned at UFC 21 to take on 350-pound Andre Chief Roberts. The two entered the octagon ready to swing, and Waterman scored with several punches and high knees. Somehow, the Chief got back on track and managed to sneak in a left hook that sent Waterman to the canvas. At UFC 22, he returned to take on Tim Lisick. The two battled through 3 rounds of action until time expired and the fight was ruled a draw. Ron Waterman enters the octagon tonight, looking to recapture his winning ways in the UFC.
A big night for Ron Waterman. From Greeley, Colorado, fighting out of Broomfield, Colorado. He is a wrestler. His nickname, of course, the H2O Man. His wife, Jody, and he have a 10-year-old son, Justin, a 5-year-old son, Austin. They are watching Daddy tonight as he fights in Tokyo, Japan, and he is as sculpted an athlete as we feature in the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
He's got the physical tools. The question is, does he have the technical skills? And most wrestlers always have that innate ability at takedowns and perhaps even good control once you're able to keep a man down, even if you are in his guard. But Waterman now has been training. He's had a chance to learn some submissions. He's had a chance to improve his striking skills. Let's see what he's learned.
Well, let's see what he has in an opponent tonight. In Satoshi Honma, 2-4-1 in his fighting career. He has fought in some Pride events. He has fought in some Shudo events. Tonight he will fight for the first time in the Super Bowl of Mixed Martial Arts, the UFC.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what he's really going to bring to the table. Seems to have a little bit of a worship there, a little faith. Prepare himself to go ahead and enter the octagon. Once again, submission's probably his biggest weapon, but he's going to be outsized a little bit here by Waterman, and it's going to be imperative for him not to get caught underneath. So let's see how well he can defend against takedowns.
Outsized drastically by 42 pounds. Again, age unknown on Honma. 34-year-old Ron Waterman coming back from a bicep injury that had him sidelined for a few months. His bicep is healed. He tells us that he is at 100%.
Well, time will tell. Certainly he looks good. Good wrestler. Very, very powerful. He does have a size advantage, but the question is, skill-wise, what is he going to show us tonight?
Well, he has trained with some of the best here in Japan over the past few weeks, getting ready for this fight, and so he will have some fans in the audience tonight here in Tokyo. His opponent is Honma. You say that you think his submissions will be good. Again, some of these Japanese fighters are new to us as they are to the fans at home now. Despite the fact that he has strong submissions, he doesn't mind throwing.
No, it says right there, he doesn't mind kneeing, trying to tie up with the man so that he can bring those knees to bear. Let's see exactly what he'll do. He'll probably be able to kick. I mean, Minowa brought that out of nowhere when he caught Joe Slick in our previous fight.
Well, the last one, Waterman, Jeff, I'm sorry, the last one, Waterman went the distance, but the other two were quick strike fights, either against Andre the Chief Roberts or against Chris Kondo. So, be interesting to see how this one starts. Heavyweight matchup, first of 3 5-minute rounds, the show of respect, and here we go.
Well, Honma is taking a wrestling stance here, which is a bit confusing. It's going to be hard to throw a punch from there. Even might be able to get a kick off from there, but sort of an odd stance.
Waterman has admitted that he doesn't know a whole lot about his opponent. Looks for a takedown, looks for a shoot here early. He does know that this young man gives away a lot of size, and that's one thing that Waterman wants to try to take advantage of. Side mount.
I'll tell you, he had his arm extended fully on Honma's chest, and Honma didn't go for an armbar. It looks like a neck crank here going by Waterman. See if he'll choke here, take his back and choke. Looked for it.
Waterman now with right hands. Waterman trying to overwhelm his opponent early. Those ones connected. Punches to the cheek. And now Waterman continues to try to overwhelm Honma here early.
Doesn't want to burn himself out, wants to be effective, not just chase and waste energy. Half guard, keeping Waterman from passing.
Waterman trying to strike from within the half guard of Honma. Waterman punches with the right, but they're being knocked down by the extended left arm of his opponent.
Some of those got through, but none of them with any real power. But he has that arm tied up of Honma, allowing him to go ahead and throw strikes at will.
If you have a situation where punches are not landing, it's not a good opportunity to try to land them because, well, there's a cut open on the left eye as I say that, Jeff. But as you said, if you're Ron Waterman, you don't want to punch yourself out on strikes that aren't scoring you any points.
Those are good.
Those ones
Those
were
last
better.
2-3 were straight on.
Taking his back again.
got to be careful. They're right up against the fence.
Waterman's just teeing off now.
Should just get the hooks in and look for that choke.
Waterman is a wrestler by trade. He's wrestled for 25 years of his life. Can he finish in a non-wrestling position?
He's also headhunting. I mean, it's the side of Honma is wide open, and he can get some good ones right there, in on the rib. Force him to make a decision on what he's going to do.
Come on, let's go.
I can't believe that he's choosing this as his defense. I'm surprised he hasn't rolled over and gone back to his guard.
Well, Waterman said in his training coming into this fight, there's a knee that he's been working more on his striking. And those 3 knees, 4 knees connecting to the head of Honma, and a 5th.
Got the hand up there for that one.
Waterman employing a variety of strikes that we have not seen him employ in his prior trips inside the gated and padded walls.
That was a page out of Tito Ortiz versus Guy Metzger. Inside cradle, knee to the head.
Now Waterman slips right out of an attempted choke.
I think he powered his way out of that choke. That seemed to have gotten on him, but he just muscled his way out.
He does consider himself very much like Mark Coleman, a ground and pound wrestler. Never had been to Japan prior to this trip. He is loving the opportunity to gain the exposure that he gets with this overseas adventure.
I don't know if he has quite the striking ability as a Mark Coleman. Coleman's punches are ferocious.
Yes. But the style is similar.
Yes, it is, very much so. Up against the fence, not a lot happening right now.
And in all fairness to Ron Waterman and Mark Coleman, Waterman a very good wrestler, Coleman a great wrestler.
Certainly was. Mark Coleman, truly an NCAA champion, an Olympian. He's done it all, world medalist.
So with all due respect to Ron Waterman, we compare styles, but perhaps not overall talent levels. But Waterman would like to take it there.
Absolutely.
There's no question that he's worked his tail off now that he has been a regular inside the octagon to get to the level and perhaps even succeed the level of success that Mark the Hammer Coleman enjoyed. But Mark the Hammer Coleman fizzled out at the end of his UFC career as he was defeated on multiple occasions.
I don't know if we've seen the last of Mark
Yeah,
Coleman. That'd be interesting.
As I started to say that, I was thinking the same thing, partner.
Waterman now, let's see what he'll do to try to get inside, maybe take down Honma. Honma using knees here to pretty much keep Waterman at bay here this last minute.
Final seconds of the first round. Just another sidebar on Mark Coleman. Of course, his protege, Kevin Randleman, is our heavyweight champion. We'll see him against Pedro Hizo on June 9th. Final seconds of the first round, and there's the bell. And a good round and a variety of different punches, knees, and strikes displayed by Ron Waterman.
Well, it was Honma that got that last punch in, and he moved away quite happy with himself for getting one in, but that round was Ron Waterman's. Between the takedown, the striking ability, some punches here, he tied up the right arm of Honma here, preventing him from really blocking this onslaught of punches to the right-hand side. And then he also employed some knees, got that nice inside cradle going, and then exposed the head right here. And once he locks up, here come the knees. Didn't have the full cradle locked, but has that position where he could have locked his hands if he wanted to. Honma took a little bit of punishment there.
Yeah, he sure did. And, you know, he looked okay at the end of the first round, too. Let's see how he comes out here in the second. Waterman definitely getting the edge in the first round. A glove adjustment being made. McCarthy gets both fighters set in their corner. And we're ready to get it on here in round number 2. Mike Goldberg, Jeff Blatnick, James Wormy with you from Yoyogi Gymnasium in Tokyo, Japan. UFC 25 middleweight title on the line later on tonight. Tito Ortiz, Wanderlei Silva.
I mean, Honma can't, it doesn't even look like, oh, nice kick by Honma there. Waterman shooting the double, but he's on his knees and crawling forward. I'm not sure that's the kind of penetration step he wants to employ when shooting a takedown. But it seems like neither one of them want to strike on their feet. None of them are boxing. None of them are reaching with a jab or throwing any kind of combination.
And it's interesting, in the breakdown of the fighting skills of Honma, it says that he doesn't mind being on his feet and striking. And Ron Waterman has trained a lot since his last appearance inside the octagon on his stand-up game. Honma motioning to John McCarthy that his glove has fallen off. And good recognition of McCarthy. Just a minor adjustment. Timeout on the floor, if you will. Just an equipment adjustment on Tsutoshi Honma.
Well, obviously you have to fix the glove. It's a danger to the opponent if the finger's sticking out and you get poked in the eye, or you having a tear in the glove, and the material can cause an abrasion on the eye. Safety factors that have to be considered.
Touch of gloves, show of class. Marks over the right eye of Honma.
I mean, they could be punching right there, and they choose not to. Both of these guys seem oriented to grappling.
Ron wrestled at the varsity level at the University of Northern Colorado. He is an high school art teacher now and is really enjoying his opportunity to showcase his skills inside the octagon. This is truly the Super Bowl of mixed martial arts. This is where the big boys play, and their playpen is this building and this creation within the building, the octagon. 3:08 remains in the second round.
Honma now with guard, defending against strikes.
Oh,
look at
high
the
with the leg.
armbar. He had that set up earlier in the fight and didn't take it. Once again, we see the Japanese very coy, very sly, not telegraphing what they want to do early in a fight. What's helping Waterman here is that fence. Honma can't extend, can't arch his back, and because he couldn't, Waterman eventually muscles out.
And that fence and brute strength, 40 pounds or so heavier than his opponent.
And that fence definitely helped Waterman in that instance. It prevented Honma from arching his back and extending, putting direct pressure on the joint. He was just hanging on there, couldn't really get the full hold.
But back in December of 1997 in a room at the hotel in which we were staying in Shin, Yokohama, you and Big John McCarthy taught me real quickly that doesn't matter how strong you are, if your entire body is working against one of your opponent's limbs, that limb is going to lose the battle.
Yes, absolutely, no doubt about that. An attempted triangle there, and unsuccessful. More knees by Waterman.
That was not a pleasurable afternoon for me, by the way. But thank you for
It's
the
never a
for the
pleasurable
welcome.
afternoon when I go with John McCarthy doing submissions.
Waterman now working again with the punches.
Oh,
there's a knee. Good knees tonight by Waterman.
They don't seem to really have an effect. We've seen other people knee just once, and it was lights out. And Waterman's connected with many punches, many knees.
Can this wrestler finish, though? He has his opponent's back, striking but not looking for any submission. But those will wear Honma down.
I almost wonder if you want to hang on with his left arm. The left arm's pinned against the fence, totally not being able to be brought into use. I would almost let go of the opponent and look to strike him there, and if he rolls over to the guard, big deal. It doesn't seem like you want to use the choke, and that's really the big weapon if you take a man's back.
Honma's showing me a little bit of Shioshi Kosaka here. TK, the heart of a lion, taking a lot of punishment, but not looking too worse for the wear.
No, and he keeps that open guard going.
I mean, he comes back quickly after eating 5 or 6 right hands from Ron Waterman and delivers a couple of blows back himself. And now from below with a guard position, he's striking with the knees.
The can opener. Waterman pulling on the head here. It's an artificial choke. And Honma now getting very active.
Staying busy, Jeff.
Yes, he is.
15 seconds remains in the second round.
But it's been all Waterman thus far. Honma with a couple attempts this period, but the story has been Waterman takedowns, punches, and knees.
Second round comes to conclusion.
And they both get up on their own power, make it back to the corner. Waterman looks a little tired, getting a little coaching. Let's take a look at some of that early action. Waterman in Honma's guard, looking to get some strikes going here. But it was Honma surprising Waterman and locking up, or attempting an armbar. Has it basically locked up, but The fence is in the way. He can't extend his back. He can't arch. And if he was allowed to do that, he could put a lot of pressure on the arm of Ron Waterman. Waterman stacking him up like this keeps the pressure off his arm, and when he started the knee like that, broke the lock on that arm bar.
Waterman has really enjoyed this trip to Tokyo. He worked out a little bit at the fabled Tokyo Dojo Peds Lab, located near the hotel in the Tokyo area, and rolled a little bit with Eugene Jackson, who we will see later on the card here tonight in a middleweight matchup against Kukuta. But this is the third and final round of our only heavyweight fight of the night, Honma and Waterman.
First 2 rounds belong to Waterman on my unofficial scorecard. But I think most viewers would agree Waterman has displayed more skill thus far, more scoring. Honma, you're right, doesn't look any worse for wear than that little abrasion on the left temple. And you can see neither one of these fighters want to employ their hands while they're standing. They're up, they're in a defensive posture for boxing, but there is no offense whatsoever. Looks like they both enjoy the grappling. Who knows, maybe there's a leg kick looming here very soon, as we saw in an earlier fight.
Waterman showing a little bit of southpaw here, and he is a right-handed fighter, so I don't know if he's trying to prove anything or if it's more a defensive tactic, but then he slips a right jab in that glances across the jaw, never really connecting with his opponent, Honma. Just underway here in the third round, 1 minute and 20 seconds, and they're both on their feet. Neither have tried to do too much.
I don't see a lot of bounce left in Ron Waterman's legs. No snap. He's stepping, and the steps are slow, and his feet are staying on the ground. No snap.
And if a quick kick comes towards the lower leg, you have to take the leg with the kick. You don't want to go down, but you don't want to have it firmly planted, because then it delivers a much bigger snap.
Yeah, you want to get the weight off of it.
That's right. We saw in Japan Maurice Smith use kicks effectively in his fight back in December of '97. And I remember the welts he put on the leg of Tank Abbott in their matchup.
Well, there was a beautiful double leg takedown by Waterman. Touched his knee, but he was on the hips immediately. Good follow through, taking Honma down to the ground. It seems as though Waterman's really in control with this style against Honma. Honma really needs to come up with some kind of a tactic, something he hasn't shown. Did try a few heel kicks there, it seemed, towards Waterman. McCarthy right there to stop him from using a kick to a down fighter.
Ron Waterman saying to John McCarthy that his opponent had a hold of his glove. John breaks that up real quickly.
That is a rule. For those who may have missed the last show, the glove is a mandatory piece of equipment, thus we don't let you grab just the material of the glove. Otherwise, it can cause the glove to tear, then it becomes a safety problem.
Under 2 minutes now remaining in the match. Waterman in control of his opponent Honma, trying to up his record to 2-1-1. This a very important night in the UFC fighting career of Ron Waterman. We're still trying to figure out how talented this young man is.
No, physically has all the talent in the world. In terms of mixed martial arts skills, those 4 skill sets, he's got pretty good takedowns, but it's apparent on his feet he didn't even want to strike, that his striking skills may lack a little bit. He's not bad at ground and pound, but his punches, I don't think, carry the same kind of velocity as some of the other heavyweights. So continue training, a little bit more experience. Maybe he'll turn the corner and be challenging for that heavyweight title.
Well, hard work and God, a combination of both, have blessed him with the physical skills, as you talked about, and that's a big part of it. And he's shown a variety of strikes here. You know, he's not striking, he's not going toe-to-toe, he's not stand-up, but yet now he's using the combinations rib, 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 head, head, rib. A lot more tactically sound than maybe the Ron Waterman we saw against Tim Lacey.
Well, there's the same kind of tactic there. Body then the head, body then the head. He might want to do it in a little bit more of a combination fashion where he takes a rest for 5 seconds gathering, then unloads a combination, then stabilize again. Ron seems to keep the same pace and just keeps punching, and that can become a little bit predictable. If he changes his speeds, if you will, like a pitcher, I think that can all of a sudden make him seem much more explosive, much more powerful. But if you methodically approach it in a monotone way, then it gets predictable. And I think then you lose a little bit because the opponent knows the punch is coming.
Well, if you're asking me to predict the outcome of this fight, I am going to say that Ron Waterman will be victorious tonight here in Tokyo.
Well, he certainly fought a good fight. He controlled his opponent. He was able to take him down. He was able to ground and pound. Also some very good knees in there. So a good fight for Ron Waterman. Let's see if the judges agree.
Well, the ground and pound took place in all 3 rounds. Let's take a look at some of his ground and pound tactics back from round number 1, partner.
Well, he certainly employed them throughout the fight. It's a success for him. He understands that's a good position for him, particularly because he didn't have a lot of experience, meaning you don't pass the guard very well. So you're willing to stay in that guard and throw strikes from there.
25対30。ジャッジ梅木26対30。ジャッジトニー・ムリナックス26対30。以上の結果3対0でブルーコーナーロン・ウォーターマンの判定勝ちです。
Ron Waterman gets the decision, the win over Satoshi Honma.
Well, I think it was no surprise to anyone there. He performed well. It was a good performance for him, far away from home, and certainly under a lot of pressure in terms of his career. With a record of 1-1-1, he really needed to make a statement, get back into winning ways, and start opening up those opportunities for him to get a heavyweight title shot.
Well, certainly Ron Waterman did not take any punishment at all tonight. He was the one doing the punishing, and we see it here from round 1, the ground and pound I talked about a moment ago.
Took his back and then just unloaded punches, and it'll eventually change off and go to the rib once here just to break up the defense of Honma. But something I'd also like to see him do is take a risk and get right on top of him and go for the choke. You've got to be pretty much well-rounded when it comes to all 4 of the disciplines, the skill sets that make up mixed martial arts.
Our winner is backstage with James Wormy.
Thanks very much, Goldie. Joined right now by Ron Waterman. Ups his UFC record to 2-1-1. Ron, it's been 7 months since you've been in the octagon. You had to come all the way back to Japan to get into it. How'd it go out there?
Went good, James, and I'd like to take all the credit for this win, but I have to credit it all to the Lord because He's blessed me with some tools and some abilities to compete like I have, and I owe it all to Him.
Pretty much straight up ground and pound from what I saw.
Yeah, I had a hard time. He was really, when you get sweating like that, it's hard to lock up. He's a pretty flexible guy, a little bit stronger than I expected, and I just had a hard time getting good position and finishing.
Threw a lot of leather in the first round, a lot of knees, a lot of hands. Do you think it slowed you down in the later rounds?
Yeah, it did, and I wanted to keep up that intensity with the punches, but I didn't want to burn myself out. I felt like I was doing all the work up on the top, and he was just kind of relaxed and taking some punches, but he was able to keep his wind where I was expending a lot, so I just decided to be safe with it and take advantage where I could.
Ron, seems like amongst the American fighters, there's a real camaraderie, a lot of high fives. I saw you talking to Laverne just then, and Pat, everybody congratulating each other. Talk about that.
Well, it's a neat feeling to come out and you've got fellow Americans who I fought with. This is my 4th UFC, so I fought with a lot of these guys, and we've got a lot in common, and you just naturally tend to support your own countrymen.
Sure enough, Ron Waterman up in his UFC record to 2-1-1, USA 2, Japan 1. Back to you, Goldie.
Keeping score. Who will win this one, though, between USA and Brazil? Tito Ortiz warming up backstage, getting set to fight for the middleweight championship later tonight. Tito Ortiz and Wanderlei Silva. Middleweight fight coming up next is Eugene Jackson and Kakuta. Now, Eugene the past couple of days has been suffering with a bad case of the flu. Our James Wormy caught up with Eugene Jackson earlier tonight.
Thanks, Goldie. Joined right now by Eugene Jackson, rising middleweight in the UFC, 2-0. Eugene, we're excited to have you back in the octagon. We know you've been suffering from the flu this week. Tell us how it's going.
It's going okay. Just trying to catch up on my rest, so when I get out there ain't no excuses.
Obviously, Eugene's a gamer. He's here. He's ready. There was never a doubt he was going to show up to fight. Is this going to affect your performance, and in what way do you think, if any?
Maybe in cardio, because I haven't been able to get my lungs up, but performance, I think that I should be able to keep him off me.
How do you see the fight going tonight, Eugene? Another Japanese fighter for you. Did fine last time, another knockout in the octagon. Do you know much about Kikuta? How do you approach this fight?
He's more of a grappler. He wants to get it to the ground. That's where his base is. My job is to not let him get it there. So I want to strike and move, and I think it should play into my hands.
Sick or not, you know this guy comes to fight. Eugene Jackson, we'll see him tonight. Back to you guys.
All right, Worm, we will see him. Coming up next, it's Eugene Jackson and Kikuta, and Eugene Jackson is an absolute gamer. 2 times he has entered the octagon. Both times he has scored a knockout.
Middleweight Eugene Jackson has been a one-man wrecking crew since he entered the octagon in July of '99. At UFC 21, he took on Iowa wrestling legend Royce Alger, outclassing and outlasting his opponent. Jackson showed excellent countering skills against the All-American, and even when he found himself taken down, remained poised and in control. With his opponent running out of gas, Eugene was able to score with a flurry of strikes that ended with a huge left-hand knockout. Jackson would return at UFC 23 in Tokyo, taking on Pancrase fighter Ki Yamamiya. Jackson again approached the fight patiently, scoring with occasional flurries and keeping the action standing up. In the 3rd round, as he had done before, the power puncher lured his opponent in, then scored with that quick left hook. Yamamiya was out, and Eugene Jackson was a perfect 2-0 in the octagon, with 2 knockouts to his credit. So tonight, Eugene Jackson returns to build on his perfect UFC record and put himself in line for a shot at the middleweight title.
From East Palo Alto, California, his 2nd time fighting in Japan with a big smile on his face, the man Eugene "The Wolf" Jackson. Physical strength, one of his attributes, and he has been impressive in both of his UFC matchups. He's got a great wrestling background, trains in Palo Alto with the Stanford wrestling team, but he can also punch as well as anyone in the middleweight division.
Well, he's got that sneaky left hook. We have never really seen him tested in the grappling sense, so this is going to be a big challenge for him, but look for him to try to bring that weapon to bear.
Now let's see how he is able to perform against this man, Sani Kikuta, making his UFC debut, wearing the gi as we speak. It'll be interesting to see if he removes it or not. This is a young man who has been very well versed in his career as he does remove the gi in judo.
Both judo and Pancrase look for him to be that big submission specialist here. Jackson indicated that he thinks that this guy is going to be wanting to go to the ground.
Tail of the tape on this middleweight fight, 1 of 4 tonight. 33-year-old Eugene Jackson against 29-year-old Kikuta. They are both virtually the same size. Another matchup between the USA and Japan. So nothing given on either side of this tail of the tape between Jackson and Kikuta. Considering the bout of flu, the past 48 to 72 hours for Eugene Jackson, what should we look for possibly as you see the breakdown on his skills early on in the fight for Jackson?
Well, he's got all the big skills there. The question is going to be, as he said in his interview, his lungs. If he goes too hard too early, it just might zap him and he's not going to be able to recover. But I don't think he's worried about that now. The first round should unfold without any problem with conditioning. So we'll get to see how both these guys want to approach one another and really where their strengths lie.
The introduction of Kikuta, the judo background that I spoke of, very well versed in submissions.
And that also comes from that Pancrase as well. Yes, he is going to be a submission guy, and Jackson feels as though he isn't really going to want to stand up on his feet like his last Japanese opponent. So I tend to believe that with the Pancrase background and the judo background, he's more adept at wanting to get contact and get to the ground.
So Big John McCarthy ready to get this matchup underway. Already victorious tonight, Laverne Clark, Ron Waterman, and Minowa with the victory over Joe Slick. This the 4th of 6 fights on the card tonight from Tokyo, and we are underway.
Now let's see what they do. Measuring. Creating distance. Almost all the fighters say they measure things in the distance. Quick leg kick. Another Pancrase specialty.
Haven't seen a lot of leg kicks employed tonight. Saw a high kick that ended the night for Joe Slick.
Whoa.
And speaking of that, let's see what possessive skills this young man from Japan has with that judo background. Means he can throw him a bit.
Well, Kikuta looks very relaxed, smiling, and it's he who's getting off first. Seems very comfortable in there. Good composure. He seems to have something in his head where Jackson seems to just be reacting to what Kikuta does.
And the one advantage Kikuta has had was the ability to watch Jackson fight against Ki Yamamiya the last time we were here in Japan. It'll be interesting to see if maybe Kikuta saw something that night that makes him feel so confident against Eugene Jackson.
That was an interesting takedown. He just overwhelmed Jackson. He never really shot. He never really hit him with anything. It's just Jackson couldn't retreat quick enough.
Have not seen Eugene Jackson on his back very often in his UFC career, and he's trying to bring it up to the feet with that in mind. But back down it goes.
Guillotine. Let's see how well he has it locked.
Jackson doesn't want to be impatient, but certainly because of his worry about his stamina, would like to end this fight early. Can he lock in a guillotine here?
Well, it would have helped if he used his legs to lock the lower body of Kikuta so that he could keep him from moving around and relieving the pressure of the guillotine choke. And as you said, we haven't seen Jackson in a grappling match yet. And thus far, it's Kikuta who's doing all the work and doing the scoring.
Well, Yamamiya was more of a striker. This fighter here is more of a grappler, and that's what Eugene Jackson thought we might see as far as a philosophy for Kikuta, is that he would want this fight on the ground, as most Japanese fighters prefer.
Well, he's got a half guard on Kikuta. Let's see if Kikuta can pass it and get to the mount. Rolling on him, but unable to get that right leg free.
One of Eugene's 2 losses in mixed martial arts was to Wanderlei Silva. He's 10-2 overall in MMA competitions, 2-0 in the UFC. Of course, we'll see Wanderlei Silva fight for the belt later on tonight against Tito Ortiz.
Got to the mount.
2:10 remaining in round 1.
Oh, if he puts his arms up like that, he's inviting trouble. Should keep him right at the chest. Not keep him extended out to the side. And see, that right arm is up tall. That could be a problem. It's away from his body, and that's when you can isolate things.
It's the left arm that is extended, the right arm which is pushing on the left shoulder of Kikuta. And it's almost as if Kikuta just took a peek a moment ago to see what position he had Jackson in, but is unable to go for anything at this present time.
Jackson hasn't been able to bring that elbow back to his side yet. That arm was still isolated, and now he has the opportunity.
Oh, punch from within the underneath position. I mean, a full mount, and yet Jackson landed one, but now it is Kikuta that's throwing punches at Eugene Jackson.
He shouldn't keep his arms up there like that. Jackson's basically sticking a straight arm right into Kikuta's chest.
Full mount displayed by Kikuta here, trying to punish Eugene Jackson in the first 4 minutes of round number 1.
And a big barrage of punches there.
Punches and elbows.
Neck crank.
And there is that arm again that is caught in an upward position on Eugene Jackson. Eugene trying to relax in this situation as that crank is very well put into Eugene Jackson. And Jackson's already in less of a physical condition than before.
Watch his right leg. He's going to go for an armbar. He brought the right leg over the head.
There's the tap. It's over. It is over by submission. Kikuta victorious over Eugene Jackson.
You could see it coming. Jackson had that arm straight, and then you saw Kikuta kind of moving up towards the head with his right knee, and it all seemed to come together as he finally brought that knee up. He let Jackson's arm go, and Jackson popped it up. He simply stepped across the face, locked up the arm bar. Kikuta with that pancrase background, that submission specialist.
Great recognition, partner, of him trying to set up that arm bar to win by submission.
Wasn't so much setting it up, it seemed as though Kevin extended early in the fight and held it there. And that's like a red flag waving. Hey, my arm's straight, you could do something with it. But he was sick, you know, and you got to give credit to Kikuta. Good Lord, he was able to take down, mount, and grounded pound from the mount.
So the first defeat inside the octagon suffered by Eugene Jackson, and Kikuta wins his UFC debut, winning by submission with just 22 seconds remaining in the first round. Kikuta talking to his fans here at Yoyogi Gymnasium.
This is a pancrase thing too. They talk to the fans after every fight, the winner.
This is customary in Japan. No spotting of James Wormy here to translate for us at home.
Well, great performance. Super job by Kikuta. Perhaps we'll see him in the octagon again. Certainly has great talent.
Tell me what we see here. The submission finally employed and the end of the match for Eugene Jackson.
You can see the left arm trapped, and he's desperately trying to pull that left elbow down and get it back to his side. And here you can see that right knee sneaking up, sneaking up, sneaking up. And simply right here, he's going to throw it over the top, and that arm is trapped. Now he'll isolate the wrist. That gives him the leverage to straighten out the arm, arch the hips, and that puts the pressure to the elbow. Eugene Jackson had to tap out.
We saw earlier tonight an attempted submission on the arm, unsuccessful because the fighter was not able to extend their body. What a difference it makes, the extension of Kikuta able to end the night for Eugene Jackson. Well, just a break in the night here in Tokyo. Intermission at Yoyogi Gymnasium. Still to come, the middleweight championship matchup between that man, Tito Ortiz, and Wanderlei Silva, working out with Tiki, a fighter who we saw fight in our last UFC. Getting ready for tonight, the Huntington Beach bad boy, Tito Ortiz. Let's check in right now with James Wormy backstage with a very special guest.
Thanks, guys. Joined by a very special guest. We see him at every show, but it's not very often that we get to talk to him. Big John McCarthy, thank you for joining us, John. Let's talk about the last two fights tonight. Everyone's looking forward to, of course, the middleweight championship, but let's address the Bustamante versus Anjo fight. A lot of hype coming in on Bustamante. Anjo is, of course, a hero here in Japan. What do you think about that fight?
You know, the hype as far as Bustamante, it's not hype when it's real, and the guy is for real. He's absolutely fantastic in mixed martial arts competition. He is one of the best out there, and so Anjo's got his hands full. Yoji's, you know, a professional wrestler here and has worked his way into real fights. I said, but well, as far as I look at here, he's got his hands full for a really tough evening going against the guy he is. He's picked one of the top guys in the world to fight in this fight, so he's in for a long evening, I think.
Let's move ahead to the middleweight championship. Fans buzzing across the world on this one. Silva versus Ortiz. Break each fighter down for us. You know, you're closer than anyone in the octagon. Tell us what you see from either of these guys.
You know, this is one of those ones you could have a great match here, and you can have people wanting rematches for a couple of fights to come because they match up really well. What Tito does very well, you know, is his ability to take people to the ground and control them on the ground. That's probably what Wanderlei's weak spot is, if he has one, and it's not really a weak spot because he's very good at protecting himself there. And Tito's stand-up is okay, but it's Wanderlei's strong point. He's great with his knees, and he's great at stopping the takedown. And so it's going to be a real test of whether Tito can get him to the ground and impose his style upon Wanderlei, or if Wanderlei is going to be imposing his style against Tito. It should be a great fight. It's one of those ones you don't know, and so that's what makes it really interesting.
Nobody's closer to the fighters, and few people know more about the fighters than Big John McCarthy. John, talk about how you've been here for a long time. Talk about how the UFC athlete has evolved. The guys we have going tonight are the finest fighters in the world. What have you seen as far as trends in training and athleticism in the octagon?
Got it. You know, probably the perfect example is you take a look at Tito Ortiz. He was in here about UFC 13 when he fought as an alternate. Just a pure wrestler, you know, a little bit of a brawler, street fighter type, you know, with what he considered his striking ability. But here's a guy that realized, you know what, it wasn't where it needs to be if he wants to be successful at this. He's gone and he's made himself an absolutely fantastic mixed martial arts fighter. His his submissions. He, obviously he just competed in a competition, across the world, his submission championship, and was one of the highlights of that entire tournament was Tito Ortiz, because his submissions are there now. He's working, he's improving all the time, he's just getting better and better. He is what the UFC is evolved about. He is a mixed martial artist. He is a hybrid fighter. He's very good on his feet. He's very good on the ground. He's the whole package, and that's what you have to be. You can't be a one-dimensional fighter and do well at this anymore. You've got to be someone that can bring more than just one type of style into the octagon.
Big John McCarthy, he's simply the best ref in the business. Guys, back to you.
Well, Worm, you will get 2 other votes of confidence when we speak of that one. The best internet site in the business to check up on the news of your Ultimate Fighting Championship, SEG.com. Log on daily to get updates on all the fighters' bios. And for the best in talk internet radio, it is IATA.com. on every day on your internet site, IATA.com. So bookmark both SEG.com and IATA.com. Coming up next, the well-documented debut of Bustamante taking on Anjo. That a middleweight matchup. Now, earlier this week in Tokyo, some of the U.S. fighters visited the Yokosuka Naval Base outside of Tokyo, and many of the members of the Navy who are stationed now in Japan are in attendance here tonight.
Thanks, guys. Joined here octagon side by Petty Officer Kaiwa Kirchhoff of the Yokosuka Naval Base here in Tokyo. These guys were fortunate enough to host all of the American fighters this week. Kaiwa, tell us what it's like to have the UFC come to town and be able to see it right here in your own hometown.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's just like a little piece of America here in Japan. We are so excited that you guys have come here, and we really appreciate the time you showed us on the base, meeting all the fighters, and them spending time with the sailors there. It meant a lot to us, and we really appreciate it.
I want to talk to some of the other guys. What is it about the UFC that you guys love so much?
We love the American fighters over here. There's a lot of action. It's more we see on the base in about a month. And we have great support for you guys. You've given us a lot. And we're glad you guys can come over here. And next time you guys come to the base, we'll try to get you on and get a lot more support over here.
Thank you very much. Kaiwa, I know we got a lot more guys up there. Let's say hello to all those guys up there. All right. All right, guys.
Now, it is great to see the support of our U.S. Navy men who are working every day in Japan right now. They're going to watch Anjo and Bustamante. And what a matchup we anticipate this middleweight fight will be. Bustamante, as I said at the top of the show, 100% Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, making his UFC debut tonight.
And he brings in a storied record. Certainly one of the toughest guys out there, going a 40-minute draw with the likes of the size of a Tom Erickson, knocking out Jerry Bolander. I mean, this guy is for real. And he brings in submissions above, the likes of the very best that have ever graced the octagon. Got nothing but respect. I've heard so much about him, and his nickname on all of the different chat pages regarding mixed martial arts is Bust a Move. The guy has got great talent, superb skills, and he just throws one thing after the other at you.
Well, let's see if it is enough tonight for him to be victorious in his UFC debut against a man who comes in draped in the black robe and is fighting in the UFC for the second time. His first appearance in the UFC was back in December of '97, UFC Japan #1, if you will, Jeff, and he lost that night to the bad boy of the UFC, David Tank Abbott.
He put up a pretty good fight with Abbott, but Abbott wound up getting the decision and puts him with an 0-1 mark in the octagon. But he is really going to be challenged. I mean, Bustamante is the real deal. He is the complete package. He is a submission specialist. Really one of the best to ever grace the octagon. So I really don't know what Anjo brings in here other than a professional wrestling background, and I think that's going to fall woefully short skill-wise to Mr. Bustamante.
Bustamante trained with the Gracie family at one point in his career. He does no longer, but he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist taking on a submission guy. Both are 33 years old, a middleweight fight, so both are under 199.9. There you get a good look at Murilo Bustamante. birthplace is Rio de Janeiro. He fights out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Not surprisingly, he's excellent at submissions.
A Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, excellent guard, excellent submissions, and I'm sure he can do some stand-up as well, but his domain is the ground, and he invites anyone to come visit him.
The interesting thing to be asked is, can Yoji Anjo do anything to combat that? And can Yoji Anjo take advantage of what might be a lesser amount of skill possessed by Bustamante in his stand-up?
Well, pro wrestling background, has some groundwork that, you know, most of the Japanese are exposed to, and has done some kickboxing. But I have a feeling Mr. Anjo is going to meet Mr. Bustamante in Mr. Bustamante's terms.
Well, Murilo Bustamante claims a no-hold-barred record of 7-0-1. He is the current Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Heavyweight Champion. He is a 4-time BJJ Absolute National Champion. His credentials are overwhelming. His debut in the octagon is now just moments away as Big John McCarthy closes and locks the gate. And now there are 3 men in the octagon, 2 that are about to get it on. Here we go. Now, keep one thing in mind. Yoji Anjo is an absolute hero here in his home country of Japan, so he will get some vocal support from the fans tonight.
Double leg. And once again, he waited for the punch to be thrown, but Bustamante took full advantage of it, going under, getting basically a double leg, and now he's got full side mount. Boy, that was quick. He just simply stepped out of the guard.
Bustamante knows that he is up against an opponent who's very famous in Japan, but I don't think that Bustamante will be shy about doing what he wants to do, and that is a lot of what we are looking at here in the first 43 seconds of the matchup.
And that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu philosophy is take little bits and keep taking little bits until they add up to something big.
And the interesting thing is John McCarthy visited at length with James Wormy, and we talked about how every fighter is a hybrid fighter, but I think if you really put Bustamante on the lie detector, I think he'd still tell you that he's not quite as hybrid as everybody else. He's just going to see if what made Royce Gracie one of our greatest champions can make him victorious tonight, and that is, as I've said before, pure 100% BJJ.
That is correct, and Royce Gracie made no bones about it. He wouldn't strike someone just to prove he could submit them.
That was almost a decade ago, though.
Long time, and now look for a possible choke here. Vanderlei can take his back. Locked up in basically a bear hug. Anjo now is facing him, takes a knee to the stomach.
Bustamante wanted to look for an arm. Now he wants to get his opponent back down to the mat. Yoji Anjo and Bustamante just underway. 3 5-minute rounds are scheduled. It'll be 5 5-minute rounds for our upcoming middleweight championship fight between Tito Ortiz and Vanderlei Silva. 4 middleweight bouts on the card tonight. This is the third of the 4. A debut for one man, a second trip inside the world-famous octagon for the other.
Well, Anjo very game with his guard thus far. Murilo unable to really get anything going from the side mount. He's had it a couple times now. This is where the Brazilian philosophy is. Take a blow, let your opponent continue to use energy to try to hold you. Make him carry your weight, and then strike. And there you can just see him. He kind of waited, and he got one leg out of the guard. Now it's a half guard. Now he's going to get them both. Look at how easily he gets his legs out.
May look simple to those watching in the early part of their viewership of the UFC, but not as simple as it looks.
No, not at all. We've had some that have just never solved the riddle of the guard and learning how to pass it. Some base their whole style working within an opponent's guard.
So full mount now displayed by Murilo Bustamante, the 33-year-old middleweight out of Rio de Janeiro. Combination from the top, one of the rights landed. Now some short punches, and Bustamante looks extremely confident and comfortable.
Oh yeah, he does. I mean, he's very well balanced.
Oh, nice play by Anjo.
Big super back arch there. What we call a bridge in wrestling, and he was able to throw. Bustamante off of it. Whoa, almost an arm lock by Bustamante.
Anjo able to pull his release, and now they are on their feet.
He's just fearless. Bustamante walks right into him, and Anjo doesn't have any striking skills to keep him off.
I was going to say there's a reason for his display of being fearless there. If he were trying to walk into Laverne Clark, he might eat some leather.
Yes, that's true. Anjo really did not present any kind of a defense there in terms of strikes to keep him off, to keep separation. And once again, Murillo able to get to side mount.
I don't know if I would walk into Wanderlei Silva like that, Jeff.
I'm not sure that's side yet. No, it's still a half guard.
I don't know if I'd walk into Tito Ortiz like
There's
that.
a lot of guys I'm not walking into unless I'm walking with them.
Full mount again for Bustamante. But not really throwing a lot of punishing blows against Eugene Anjo, so he's just real patient.
He's not going to waste energy. That fits right in with the Brazilian tradition. They're not going to waste energy needlessly. Make it count for something. It's an intelligent philosophy.
First round's going to come to a close here in a moment. We'll hear the bell. And the end of the first round, very good for Bustamante. Yeah, combinations. And a good close to the end of the first round for Gorilla Bustamante.
He seemed to be solving the riddle there. That or Anjo starting the weekend. The other thing is frustration. I have been caught in people's guard, or I've had people get on top of me and I try to get out, and after a while, if you really don't know what you're doing, if you're not confident in the skills that you've learned how to get out of that situation, frustration sets in. And I'll tell you, you talk about fear making people get tired, frustration gets them just as tired, just as fast. And here you see a beautiful arch by Anjo. Started eating some leather. It seemed that Bustamante found the range, but then he surprised Bustamante here with a real powerful bridge, and he was able to reverse the positions. Right there, nice
Pushed
job.
off the fence, which is allowable. You can't lock into the fence, but you can push off the fence.
That is 100% correct.
Well done by Eugene Jackson.
Well, no marks. Didn't get hit that bad.
Second round underway. Mike Goldberg, Jeff Blatnick, James Wormy. Yoyogi Gymnasium, Tokyo, Japan. Oh, just slid underneath the right punch.
Beautiful technique. Looked like what we call a duck under in the sport of wrestling. Immediately got behind him. Anjo will be fresh here for a little bit. You know, anytime you come out of a corner, you're going to have some good energy, but let's see how quick he can, or how long he can maintain it.
Oh, boy. My goodness. And there is how quick a submission can be delivered.
It looked like a, you know, a choke or a neck crank there where he had the carotid cut, but he had the arm in that lock. But Bustamante is just a master of putting on submissions from all kinds of angles. And boy, I'll tell you, forced Anjo to tap. He's lived up to his reputation.
Now Bustamante just like that, and that is how quickly a submission can end the evening of your opponent. And it's funny, when we talk about the way that this sport has evolved, one mistake can end your night, and Yoji Anjo makes one mistake early in the second round. Bustamante wins by submission.
Well, he got that neck crank going, but it was the continued takedowns and the ability to pass the guard that really did set that up.
Puts the traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gi back on.
The Brazilians have another big star in the UFC.
Yes, indeed.
And I like this guy. I've read all about him.
Yeah.
I've never had the chance to see him fight personally, and now I have, and I'll tell you, he's the real deal. I can't wait to see him again.
Now let's see how he closes it out here, Jeff.
Well, here's that punch, and I mean, he just simply went right around that punch. Once he got him down, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. Push on the leg, try to get one of his out, and there he's working to try to mount, but Anjo keeps the half guard, but he gives up the lock around the head, and Bustamante just keeps it there and keeps putting more and more and more pressure on him. And I'm not sure if he was actually twisting the shoulder or whether this was really an arterial choke on the far side, the side you can't see right now, the right side. Right there on the arm, you can see on the side of his neck.
And partner, that is exactly what caused Anjo to tap. Our winner, Bustamante, is backstage with James Wormy.
Thanks, Goldie. Joined by Murilo Bustamante. He's going to be helped by a translator. First of all, Murilo, what is it like to fight in the UFC, and what is it like to finally win in the UFC?
Para você, como é lutar no Ultimate?
Bom, eu sempre tive muita vantagem de lutar no Ultimate. Para mim, lutar no Ultimate e brigar pelo cinturão é um sonho. E assim que eu tenho condição de conseguir. Sei que tem grandes lutadores como o Tito, o Vanderlei, que estão na minha frente, mas eu estou entrando agora no show e estou realizando dois sonhos, um lutar no Ultimate e outro lutar no Japão, que é um país que eu admiro muito pela disciplina e filosofia de vida do seu povo. E desde garoto eu tenho um sonho de lutar aqui, estou realizando dois sonhos ao mesmo tempo hoje.
Since Murilo was a kid, he has a dream to fight in Japan, and since he was a professional fighter, he has a dream to fight in Ultimate Fighting Championship. So he is realizing both at the same time. He's very happy. He admired a lot of Japan because about his discipline, his philosophy, everything about Japan. He's enjoyed a lot.
Take us through how you actually won the fight. Looked like you choked him out. Tell us exactly what happened.
O que aconteceu na luta? Como é que foi que você...
Bom, o tempo do round é um pouco curto para mim. No primeiro round eu não consegui dominar uma posição, ficou um round meio explodindo. E no segundo round eu já passei a guarda, encaixando uma posição e consegui dominar bem. E aí eu finalizei.
The time limit in Ultimate is not enough for him in between the rounds, and he liked to have more time, but he couldn't. So he tried the first round, but Anjo gave him a hard time in the first round. In the second round, he did better and put him down, pass his guard, and choke him out and by the side.
Why don't you talk directly to your fans of Brazil and tell them what it feels like to be here in Japan and winning the Ultimate Fighting Championship?
Sorry, didn't get it.
Talk to the fans in Brazil in Portuguese.
Talk to fans in Brazil
Bom, primeira coisa, mandar beijo enorme para minha família, para minha namorada, que me dá o maior apoio. E os meus amigos, meus alunos, os meus amigos que estão aqui comigo, o Tetel, que é meu manager, Ricardo Libório, meu amigo. Agradecer a todos eles, o Bebel, o Claudinho, meu professor de boxe. E um agradecimento especial para o meu mestre Carson Grace, que ele não pôde estar aqui, mas que me ensinou tudo que eu sei. Com certeza no próximo Ultimate ele vai estar aqui comigo. Obrigado.
More quality for the UFC's middleweight division. Back to you guys.
James, thank you very much. And this is the one we've been waiting all night for, middleweight championship between Tito Ortiz and Vanderlei Silva. The man who set this up, John Peretti, is backstage with Worm. Let's have John Peretti break this down with James Wormy.
Thank you very much, Goldie. Joined right now by UFC matchmaker John Peretti. John, let's talk about this main event. Very highly anticipated. Fans talking about this one all over the world. Let's start with Vanderlei Silva. You think he's the best kneer the UFC's ever seen. Is Tito too tall for those knees?
Very possibly. You know, when you look at Vanderlei, his ability to knee to the body and his ability to knee to the face is all contingent upon the height of his opponent. Now, he can jump a little, but he'll lose his base, and Tito can take him and turn him upside down and drop him on his head.
John, Tito's been working a lot on his stand-up fighting, but tell me, why would he want to stand up with Vanderlei Silva when he's got a world-class tackle?
Tito has the ability to do everything. A world-class tackle will take him to the ground, but Vanderlei can defend it. How well he defends it, I don't know. It could be a very boring fight. He could take him to the ground and hold him there for 5 minutes and then not let him up.
What would be Silva's approach to being underneath Tito? He's bigger, he's stronger. How's he going to get out from underneath Ortiz?
He might not be able to get out from underneath him. What I'd like to see here is Tito come in for a tackle and Vanderlei with a classic defense like we've never seen in this sport. And they mix it up a little standing up, and Tito thinks that he can do it standing up and knock him out and stays up there and does it.
Tito's been working with a lot of different people to get ready for this fight. What do you think the influence of John Lewis has been on his overall fight game?
I think the Lewis Pederneiras team is going to influence a lot. He might try submissions, and he might try a lot of arm bars. He could be a completely different fight with the influence of John Lewis.
John, we know that Tito is a former wrestler, still a wrestler. He's big on cutting weight. What do you think he weighs right now? He weighed in yesterday at 198. What do you think he's going to come in at tonight?
I see Tito at about 220 right now, maybe 219, 220. He's he is what the sport is turning into. It's a metamorphosis of training whereby you dehydrate down, as in wrestling, and you weigh in at what you need, and then you rehydrate back up and recarb back up, and bingo, you're up 20 pounds over Vanderlei, who walks around soaking wet at 200 pounds.
Everybody's excited about this one. We can't wait to crown a new middleweight champ tonight. Back to you guys by the octagon.
Well, this is certainly what this night is all about. Tito Ortiz against Vanderlei Silva for the middleweight championship of the UFC. Let's check out these two great fighters.
Tito Ortiz's UFC career began back at UFC 13 in May of 1997. Just 22 at the time, he fought as an amateur in the alternate bracket, easily dominating his opponent for the victory. His second trip inside the octagon that night would not go as well. The young wrestler dominated the fight, but fell victim to a front choke from submission expert Guy Metzger. It would be almost 2 years before Tito Ortiz entered the octagon again. At UFC 18, he returned to take on rising middleweight star and Lions Den fighter Jerry Bolender. Bigger, stronger, and more mature as a fighter, the match was all Tito. He outmuscled and outclassed Bolender, and the fight was stopped. Tito Ortiz was back with a vengeance and had just knocked off his first fighter from the Lions Den. At UFC 19, Ortiz would get a chance to avenge his UFC 13 loss to Guy Metzger. Metzger had signed for the fight to defend Lions Den pride and erase any doubt that he was the better fighter. On this night, it was not the case. Ortiz dismantled his opponent, dominating throughout until referee John McCarthy stopped the bout. 2 Lions Den opponents. 2 victories for Tito Ortiz. There was a new king of the middleweight jungle, and tensions were very high indeed.
And Shamrock very upset with the disrespect shown towards the Lions Den corner.
The main event of UFC 22 would be where forces collided as Tito Ortiz faced off against Frank Shamrock in one of the most highly anticipated fights in UFC history.
UFC middleweight championship, are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on! Come on!
And they did not disappoint. The fight lived up to all of its billing, a true showcase of the two fighters' skills, power, and expertise in the octagon. By the end of the 4th round, it was clear that the bad boy from Huntington Beach was losing steam. An exhausted Ortiz was forced to tap with only 10 seconds remaining in the round. Simply put, it was one of the greatest fights ever in UFC competition. And so tonight, with Frank Shamrock having relinquished his title, the middleweight belt is up for grabs. Without question, Tito Ortiz is the #1 contender. Without question, Tito Ortiz is one of the finest middleweights the UFC has ever seen. The only question that remains for young Tito Ortiz is, can he win the big one? Tonight, we'll find out. Highly touted Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai fighter Vanderlei Silva made his UFC debut in his home country at Ultimate Brazil. Silva immediately found himself on the wrong side of a Vitor Belfort flurry and lost in under a minute. He returned at UFC 20 to prove the loss was a fluke and add to his already impressive mixed martial arts record of 8-2. Taking on submission fighter Tony Patara, the Brazilian showed why he was one of the most dangerous middleweights in the world. Silva dominated the fight, winning with a devastating knee to the head for the knockout. Vanderlei Silva had proven he was for real and placed himself among the top middleweights in the UFC. So tonight, still battling the naysayers who think his title shot is premature, Vanderlei Silva enters the octagon to prove that he is qualified to wear UFC gold.
We are set for this title fight. Let's listen in to our octagon announcer, Sanshiro Matuyama.
ブルーコーナーよりバンダレイシューマ選手の入場です。
I'll tell you, Vanderlei Silva, wonderful competitor inside the octagon, just 22 years old, Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He is from Brazil. He made his debut at Ultimate Brazil back on October 16th, 1998. He was defeated that night by Vitor Belfort. But at UFC 20, he was big-time dominant against Tony Patara.
Yes, he was, and we saw the explosiveness of those knees. It's lights out. If he gets your head down with both hands, and that's his move, that knee up. And he wants to bring that to bear against Tito Ortiz.
Red corner より Tito Ortiz 選手の入場です。
One of the most promising fighters in the UFC today, Tito Ortiz, has his opportunity tonight to win the middleweight championship. The 25-year-old from Huntington Beach, California, has improved his submissions. He has improved his stand-up. He has even improved his set of ground skills that has always been his foundation. Tito Ortiz is one of the bright stars of the UFC, but so is his opponent tonight, Wanderlei Silva.
Sure is, and don't let two losses there. One was to Frank Shamrock for the middleweight championship. Tito's star is still rising, he's still learning, he's still improving, and he still wants to fight in the octagon.
He has said about his opponent that he knows that he's very, very tough. One of the most skilled middleweights out there right now. His game is standing, Tito's game is on the ground. It's been well documented what we think we might see tonight from Ortiz and from Wanderlei Silva. Jeff, you've talked about it. McCarthy's talked about it. Peretti's talked about it. Here's the tale of the tape. 25-year-old against 22-year-old. They're both coming in at 198. Tito Ortiz is a long 6'2", so the advantage of the reach of Tito Ortiz is something to look for tonight.
In the standing position, look for Tito to take advantage of that reach and possibly use some punches.
The introduction of the fighters to our audience here in Japan. Wanderlei Silva, excellent stand-up guy, dangerous, especially with those knees.
Knees and elbows, that Muay Thai background, and of course he's trained in Jiu-Jitsu and has a good guard. Be a challenge for Tito Ortiz to use ground and pound tactics against Wanderlei Silva.
A little foreshadowing there with the use of the knees, just as he focuses himself mentally for this opportunity to win the middleweight championship. Tito Ortiz. I'll tell you what, he gave Frank Shamrock a lot when he fought for the middleweight title a number of months ago. Very good wrestler, has improved his submissions, and has really worked with anyone who will work with him to be a better fighter.
Well, he had 3 great submissions at what's known as the Abu Dhabi tournament over in the Arab Emirates, and he opened a lot of people's eyes of how could you learn submissions so quick, and that speaks volumes for the talent and the potential of Tito.
Here we go. Big John McCarthy will be our referee. One man will walk out of here tonight is our new middleweight champion. Here we go. My favorite 4 words. Let's get it on.
I'm really interested to see who's going to be the aggressor here. And there's several scenarios. Tito can come right at him and try to take him down, and I think that's what Wanderlei Silva is waiting for. I would like to think that Tito may try to set him up, bring Wanderlei to him. So much in boxing is who chases who, and how do you create that? Same with wrestling. Some people like to continually move forward. I did, because then I feel where my opponent is. But others like to counter. And this is going to be the cat and mouse game. Well, there Tito looked for the legs. Really wasn't a shot in which he really wanted. It sort of came in front of him and he thought about it, but he wasn't really confident in it. He didn't think he was going to be shooting right then.
5 5-minute rounds as Silva is taken down by Tito Ortiz. Now, Tito took a page out of your book, Jeff, in his fight against Frank Shamrock, because he spent a lot of time trying to work Frank Shamrock on the mat.
Which could have been his downfall, because Shamrock gave away those rounds simply to fatigue Ortiz. And it was really in that last 2 rounds that he was going to go ahead and start to execute and really go after Tito. But up to then, it was, I mean, sure, if he could get it, he'd take it, but what he wanted to do was wear Tito out, and it worked.
Stay down, disrupt the fence.
Well, Tito did not have to cut as much weight to get ready for this fight tonight as he did against Frank Shamrock. He has also paid a different level of attention to his cardio since that loss to our former middleweight champion.
And we heard John Peretti talking about, you know, this may be the new style of fighter, but there still are several problems with dehydrating your body. The first was when he did it against Shamrock, it didn't work for him. Yes, he was bigger, yes, he was stronger, and that may pay dividends early in the fight. But certainly those who were standing at the end of the fight are the ones that are going to be called the winner. And so dehydrating your body like that will have that kind of an effect. It really takes a lot of discipline to keep your weight at an optimum level where when you do cut, it really isn't going to hurt your body at all. But if you're bouncing and putting 20 pounds on, 20 pounds off, that's a formula for disaster.
Look at Tito Ortiz keeping busy right now in the early part of this matchup for the middleweight championship. Wanderlei Silva and Tito Ortiz, the one we've been waiting for all night long.
Well, one thing that Tito's got to have in the back of his mind is there's a guy named Mike Van Arsdale who's been in the octagon as well. And Wanderlei Silva knocked him out. Decisively knocked him out. And that's got to be in Tito's head because Van Arsdale's may be considered a better wrestler, is a better wrestler on record than Tito Ortiz. So Tito probably didn't want to go stand up initially, maybe want to get him down a little bit, fatigue him, see if he can get some of his arsenal on the ground working. But there's no doubt in my mind that in the top of his head, he's thinking a little bit about the fact that he's got that kind of stand-up power.
And Van Arsdale, one of the guys, ironically, that Tito was able to submit in that great performance he put on in Abu Dhabi. 135 remains in round number 1.
That also says something about Tito, where a lot of wrestlers have not learned or put themselves vulnerable to people who are better than them in submissions. Tito Ortiz has. And that's how you learn quickly. And it showed in Abu Dhabi where he was able to submit some people and people's eyes bulged open going, wow, he's starting to pick this stuff up awful quick.
I think the interesting thing is last time we were together, Jeff, down in Louisiana in Lake Charles, you could see that a relationship had been started between Tito Ortiz and Frank Shamrock to the point where now they have traded trade secrets almost. And, you know, hey, if you can't beat them, learn from them. And that is what Tito Ortiz has done as his experiences with Frank Shamrock, arguably the greatest UFC champion ever.
Certainly answered all challenges, went through a marriage, went through people criticizing him because he stayed away for so long. But Frank truly, I feel, is, you know, the evolution of Frank Shamrock from being in the entourage behind Ken to being the greatest fighter to grace the octagon. I'll tell you what, I got a lot of respect for that man.
And a lot of respect for these two guys. Yeah, you got that right.
And his wife, boy, she was part of that formula.
And a part of Tito's formula
Frank,
here.
Love you both.
And these guys now trying to follow in Frank's footsteps. Two great fighters fighting for one of the 3 greatest belts in the world, the middleweight title. First round inning in a flurry of positive punches for Tito Ortiz as the bell sounds.
Well, Tito Ortiz, I shouldn't say dominated, but controlled the action in that round. Got the takedown, did some ground and pound. I'd have to give that round to Tito Ortiz, but Wanderlei Silva very much in it. Didn't suffer any real damage, but he was limited. He couldn't get on track with any kind of offense.
Wanderlei has spent some time fighting in Japan in the recent months, and he really has enjoyed his experience. But he will admit to all that want to listen that fighting for the UFC title is the dream of every fighter. This man has had that opportunity once. He did not come away victorious. He does not want the same result tonight. We get set for round number 2 after this 60-second rest period for each fighter. Wanderlei Silva is set. Tito Ortiz is set. Here is round number 2.
Tito got a quick takedown in round number 1, and oh, Wanderlei throwing some heavy leather right away.
Tito lands a big right, and down goes Silva. That one stunned him.
It definitely stunned him, but Silva's still fighting. He's hanging out of that double leg. See if Tito can spin behind him, take his back. Silva's going to concede the guard. But it was Tito Ortiz. Right. Yes, he did. Put him down. But it does appear, though, Vanderlei is all
Oh,
right.
another right, Jeff. And a combination now by Ortiz.
This is where Silva's guard should come into play to help protect him here. Those punches aren't landing cleanly. They're glancing off of arms.
What's the key to the guard here?
You're asking the wrong guy because I'm not great at it. But if you ask me what the key to the guard would be, it's keeping your arms in front of your chest or hugging, depending on where your man is. If he's trying to get close to you, hug him so that he can't create the distance to punch. And if he goes to sit up, you want to unbalance him by moving your hips so that he spends more time keeping his base and not having the foundation to throw heavy leather from.
We saw a moment ago that very thing, that Silva kept the hips moving. And because of that, Tito Ortiz's punches were glancing off the arms as you described it.
And he's gotten himself to a point now where he can possibly recover, and he seems to be doing that.
The metamorphosis of this young man, a former sparring partner of Tank Abbott. Tito Ortiz is simply now his own man. That relationship is well documented and very, very old and stale. And Tito is really taken his training and his goals and aspirations to another level.
Some may have thought Tito a little brash when he was younger, but the one thing after that Shamrock fight, every time I talk to him now, he seems to be much more confident in his abilities, much more educated as to what he needs to do, and much more disciplined in that he's gone out and sought the help he's needed to really round out his style and make him more effective.
One of the defining moments after that loss to Frank Shamrock was when he wore the Frank Shamrock t-shirt in honor of what Frank had just done in defeating Tito for the middleweight championship. Who will wear the championship t-shirt tonight, though? Tito Ortiz or Vanderlei Silva? Silva, a very dangerous fighter. Muay Thai record, 15 fights, 15 victories. Two-time Brazilian champion, 12-2 overall in mixed martial arts competition. One of those losses back to Vitor Belfort in Ultimate Brazil. Tito's keeping busy, so Silva, though.
Well, Tito just covered the arm of Silva, which means now Silva really can't throw too many punches, particularly with the right hand. And Tito trying to go over the top.
Try to come down with a big jackhammer.
And perhaps that's the biggest thing that I can say of why he's improved, is now he's willing to take risks to pass the guard, and it's not everything that if he ever gets turned and has to put the guard on someone. And that's what we've seen from our best fighters, particularly what Frank Shamrock said. I have put myself in the worst case scenario and fought from it. I am not scared of any position. And that's a man of confidence. He's unafraid as to where the fight takes him, which means I'll take risk after risk after risk, not settle for a stalemated position. And I think that's what we just saw with Tito there. He wasn't afraid to take some risk.
I had long conversations on bus rides and, trips from airports in Brazil with Maurice Smith about that very same thing, Jeff, about how you have to put yourself in a vulnerable position at times to gain the position that you ultimately want to be victorious in a title fight.
Now this is second round action, under a minute. It's pretty much been Tito Ortiz ground and pound tactics that have dominated these first two rounds.
Very much like the last middleweight title bout that he was involved in.
He did have that right hand to start this round off that seemed to stun Vanderlei Silva.
Finished round number 1 strong. Let's see if he finishes round number 2 strong. 30 seconds remains in round number 2, a scheduled 5 5-minute rounds. Here for the middleweight championship tonight in Yoyogi Gymnasium, Tokyo, Japan. Middleweight bout tonight, June 9th, we get a lightweight and a heavyweight championship.
The UFC rolls on, and that should be a great card. And
great time recognition here. Great strategy. Tito Ortiz, knowing the clock is down to 15 to 20 seconds at the end of the 1, he finishes with a flurry at the end of the 2. Round number 2. Finishes again, leaving an indelible impression in the judges' minds.
That's a smart tactic, stealing a round at the end, and I don't think he had to steal the round, but certainly he learned from Frank Shamrock that if you put a hurting at the guy at the end of the round, you make him think a little bit harder about the fact that you did win that round.
Let's go back to the beginning of the round here. This is the right. that catches Vanderlei Silva. Boom, right there.
On the chin, and he definitely lost it there. You saw him go right down to his chest, but he quickly recovered, grabbed the legs, and survived, much to his credit.
Both fighters working in their corners now.
I would tend to think that after 2 rounds, Mike, that Tito has got them both. None by dominating round, but just 10-9 rounds, both for Tito. Tito, of course, managed by Sal Garcia. Vanderlei Silva by Rudimar Frederico. And he's trained by a whole bunch of different people. Colin Oyama, Rob McCullough, Chuck Liddell, Scott Adams, but it's also John Lewis that seems to have taken a very special interest in him. Lewis, good tactician, someone to learn from.
Sizing each other up the first 30 seconds here in round number 3. Who will be the middleweight champion of the Ultimate Fighting Championship?
It's Tito doing most of the moving here. Again, he looks like he's trying to bait Vanderlei Silva to move towards him, making it easier for a double leg tackle.
Great look from our overhead camera. Now back to the positioning of Vanderlei Silva.
He's also circling, taking himself away from the power hand of Vanderlei Silva. And that's something that we haven't even seen yet. He's famous for his knees.
I was just thinking the same thing,
but he has not had the opportunity at all. Right now,
there it is, right as you say it. And Tito knows he ate one there, but Tito's right back up with enthusiasm. That's the danger on a shoot on Vanderlei Silva.
Well, one from a distance, from an outside shot, he sees it coming, and if he can just hold his balance long enough to load one of the knees up, as soon as you go to bring your head up to finish the tackle, he's bringing it up on you. That's why I like the tactic of Tito trying to get Vanderlei to move towards him. Oh, another right hand glance off the head.
Just misses with the uppercut. Now a kick, he got the leg caught but connected with the kick. And let's see what happens here. Oh, good action here.
Oh, it did look like Silva hit Ortiz there.
Oh, he's got him in trouble.
And Ortiz is in trouble. Vanderlei Silva making a fight of it.
Silva now looking to try to work on Tito Ortiz.
Ortiz now regaining his composure, working for a double leg takedown, now has it.
He was in trouble for a moment,
He
though.
certainly was, but he'll have an opportunity to recover now. And now we'll get to see a Tito Ortiz that has been wounded.
If you are keeping track of stuns at home, stun number 1 delivered by Silva in the 3rd round. Stun number 1 delivered by Ortiz in the 2nd. Now we're even in that category because Tito was shaken a moment ago.
Yeah, both were wounded by those punches, stunned. Tito actually moved away, started running away. It almost looked like, I couldn't tell because he was disoriented from the blow or whether he's just using the tactic, hey, separation is my best bet of survival right now. But it doesn't matter. Ortiz will survive. And he's starting to fight back now with ground and pound. But there's no attempt to pass this guard again. And I doubt we'll see that until he really feels he's got his bearings back.
Approaching 90 seconds remaining in round number 3.
Pace definitely slowed here.
Yeah.
Must have had an impact on Tito. And the hype about Vanderlei Silva lives up. Certainly came in here with the reputation of being a good stand-up fighter, and he nailed Tito Ortiz.
You hear the Portuguese commands coming from the corner of Vanderlei Silva. The English commands coming from the corner of Tito Ortiz.
And it's the middleweight belt up for grabs here.
Vacated by the presently retired Frank Shamrock, and 2 young men fighting right here, Jeff, who have earned their opportunity to fight for this belt tonight, undoubtedly.
Well, many people wanted another Tito versus Frank rematch, but Frank chose a direction right now in his life, and I'm certainly hoping that he can be enticed back into the fighting game, and I think that can happen. But he'll make it at his own choosing, and when the timing's right, and probably when the money is right.
20 seconds, 20 seconds.
Under 20 seconds now. Let's see if he finishes the third the way he has the first and second, but this is a Tito Ortiz a little bit more fatigued than he was at the end of round 1 and round 2, and stunned here in round number 3.
Very few people are undefeated in the UFC.
Both of these young men have suffered one defeat. A defeat tonight would mean they miss their chance to be crowned champion. 3 of 5 rounds in the books.
Well, Tito doesn't look worse for wear.
Nope.
Did get stunned, but he seems to be all there. Wanderlei Silva may feel a little bit of frustration only because of the fact that he had an opportunity but couldn't finish him. And Wanderlei just missed with that big right hand, but nice job. 2 of them exchanging. Wanderlei trying for a takedown.
There it is. It was a right there, Jeff. It was
right
a right
hand right to Tito's cheek. Put him down. Tito took a few steps in the opposite direction and then was able to tie up his upper body, weather the storm, and survive the round.
So a right connects in the second round from Ortiz. A right connects in the third round from Silva.
Let's see if Tito goes back to trying to bring Wanderlei to chase him, so those takedowns become easier.
So round 3 belongs to Wanderlei Silva.
Look at Wanderlei. He's basically standing in the exact same spot, dead center of the octagon, and all he's doing is basically rotating to face Tito. It's Tito who's doing most of the moving around Wanderlei Silva.
Ken Shamrock told me the one technique he always used was to take the center of the ring.
I'm sure Tito doesn't want to go stand up with him. I mean, he'll trade punches if he feels it's the right situation, but to just sit here and box with Wanderlei Silva, I'm not so sure that's the smart tactic if I have an arsenal full of takedowns and other weapons.
John McCarthy telling the fighters, let's get it on here. Let's start going here in the 4th round. Wait for your shoot, wait for your opportunity, don't commit. The corner of Tito Ortiz. You can hear the instructions in the background.
It almost seems like Wanderlei's waiting for him. The reason why he's not moving very much is he doesn't want to be caught in half step so that he can't bring a knee up or can't sustain a good hip sprawl.
And both guys, Jeff, have now been hurt in this match, so there is an element of hesitation that maybe was not featured earlier in the middleweight championship contest.
I agree with that, 100%. You get whacked, you think about it a little bit more.
Well, I want to go back there to where I was hit before. Center of the ring, held by Silva, circling is Tito Ortiz. Ortiz in the black full shorts. And a combination just missed Tito Ortiz there. And it gives him the opportunity to close, though.
And he'll finish the takedown again.
But he had to take the chance of getting punched to be able to shoot.
It is the game they play. How do I get close? I can get close by trying to step at him and him see me coming, or I can wait for him to be in a position that's off balance and take advantage of it and shoot then. 1, he doesn't see you coming in that way. 2, because he missed with the punch, he's off balance and not in a position to deliver that kind of an immediate counter. And it's smart tactics by Tito to try to draw Wanderlei in than to just continue moving forward and become a predictable fighter. When I know you're about to take a shot, I can load up and have it waiting for you. That is Wanderlei's knee.
And it's almost as if you could see real quickly a look in Tito's eyes before he shot there that, woof, got away from that one. Not by much, but I got away from that combination.
He's had a couple of those where Wanderlei threw some big-time leather, and it just missed in the front of Tito's face.
Under 2 minutes remains in the 4th round.
Action slowing a bit here, but middleweight belt on the line. Tito Ortiz, 4th round. Could have given Silva that round where he stunned Ortiz by a little bit, or you might have called that a draw. That's up to the other, but I think Tito definitely won the first 2 rounds, so I have Tito ahead at this point. And by the way this round is going, Tito has the takedown and has gotten a couple of punches in, but this pace is definitely slowed. Their styles have gotten very conservative.
John Peretti, in forecasting what we might see, said that this could become a fight in which we see this very thing. Silva unable to get back up off the mat when Tito's able to take him down.
And also the fact that Tito cannot pass Silva's guard and handle him at will on the ground.
Right.
Punching from within the guard is much more difficult than punching from outside the guard. Or from the side mount.
Silva has had maybe 1 or 2 knees. I don't recall seeing an elbow used by Wanderlei Silva tonight, and those are the 2 strength points of his striking skills.
And the only reason he got those knees off is because Tito took that long outside shot, no setup, no off balancing to make it easier, and Wanderlei Silva was waiting with those knees. He had them cocked and loaded.
15 seconds remains in round number 4.
And this one's going to go down in the books as a round probably for Tito Ortiz. At least it is on my scorecard, my unofficial scorecard.
Trying to finish this round with a flurry, and the bell sounds. 20 minutes they have competed here at Yoyogi Gymnasium in Tokyo, Japan.
Well, he'll towel off, get a little bit of water, get a little bit of instruction.
Good night of fights. Laverne Clark victorious. Ron Waterman victorious. Minowa beat Slick. Bustamante beat Anjo. Kakuta beat Eugene Jackson. And the winner of this, our 6th and final fight of the night, will be the new UFC middleweight champion.
Perhaps a tactic for Wanderlei Silva here would be to do the kind of outbursts we saw earlier in the fight against like a guy like Minowa, where the whole first round he didn't throw a strike. Then in the second round, he just did those bursts. All I've seen from Wanderlei here is basically the circling and the circling and the circling and no real forward motion to go after Tito. It's the 5th round. He trails on my card. And I'm pretty confident that's the way the judges have it, just because the only thing that happened was Tito, getting the takedown and doing ground and pound. So I would think that some urgency needed to be displayed by Wanderlei Silva.
Well, Wanderlei was quick to come out of the corner, take the center of the ring again. And again, I think this is a situation, Jeff, where he says, Tito, eventually you have to come to me, and you may eat something on the trip inside.
Well, Tito may not take a shot at this point. I think he may if he feels it's set up, but Tito's doing the right thing. He keeps shifting direction. Don't be a stationary target for those good hands of Wanderlei. And if Wanderlei wants to throw big leather, it's going to have to be a risk. And he took that risk and paid for it.
Let him get tired. Don't do elbows yet. Don't do elbows yet. Wait. You can throw your right knee.
As it was in the 4th, it is in the 5th. The combination attempted by Wanderlei Silva. Punches do not land. And now he has landed on his back once again.
Side mount by Tito. Let's see if he'll try to bring the knee up to block that leg to keep it from coming in and getting a half guard. And from there, he may be able to open up with a knee, right knee, or possible punches. He could also put that left knee in Wanderlei's stomach and punch from there.
Jeff, 3 minutes and 35 seconds separates one of these young fighters from the middleweight championship of the world.
The other thing Tito knows is if he just holds him right here, he doesn't have to take lots of risk. A lot of people want to see the real flashy stuff, but flashy stuff is high-risk maneuver. And high-risk maneuvers can lead to situations that cost you fights. And there's no reason for Tito Ortiz here to have to take any additional risk versus Wanderlei Silva, who has to feel that he's trailing. He's the guy that's got to create something. It isn't up to Tito Ortiz to open things up. It's up to Wanderlei Silva at this point.
2:51 on the clock. What can Silva do here? Is there anything he can do to combat this?
Well, work back to guard here. Get Tito somewhere in between his legs and then start to operate from there. And now he'll have the opportunity.
There's step one. Clock is starting to work against Wanderlei Silva.
The other is to start going for some wild submission attempts and try to get Tito to panic and back out. And perhaps that would allow him to get back to his feet. Very intelligent move by Wanderlei there. He turned himself 180 to face the center of the octagon, and Tito had every intent of driving him head first into the fence. Tito's redirected him again, but Wanderlei has very good awareness of where he is in the octagon, and he turned himself before Tito could really trap him.
And Tito, it's not as if he lacks skill in the ground game, because wrestling is his foundation.
This is also the time where, you know, Tito going 5 rounds. I mean, he wasn't able to do it against Frank Shamrock. But here, he's not only doing it, he's winning the fight, but he has slowed, and one might have to wonder, conditioning-wise, is he... One, he's made it to the 5th round, so he's obviously improved it, but is he suffering a little bit? Is conditioning or is wind causing him to slow his pace a little bit? But it's smart play either way.
I was going to say, is it wind or is it strategy? Because you alluded to the fact that Tito understands the big picture of what's going on here. He is getting punched on the side of the head. There are now 70 seconds left in our middleweight championship bout.
Well, he can trade punches with Wanderlei here and not lose the round.
Okay, you got 1 minute left.
Wanderlei trying to make a move there.
Barely got it.
Tito spins away and gets right back in, inside the guard, but still in a position where he is on top of his opponent. Our naval guests chanting USA in the background.
Well, they were into it. Not a lot of support from the Japanese people in that chant.
Yeah, and remember also, Jeff, that although Tito cut weight, there is a weight advantage here at the time of the fight over Wanderlei Silva. He's the bigger, stronger guy, as it was in his fight against Shamrock. But Shamrock somehow was able to conquer him in the end, and every time Silva tries here in the 5th, Tito turns him right back over.
I don't know why Wanderlei didn't try to do this earlier in the fight and really create, you know, these kinds of little scrambles, if you will, and force, you know, use the same tactic that Frank Shamrock did.
Final seconds of the middleweight championship are complete, and the judges will render a decision on who will walk away with the belt.
Great respect between the two fighters, but it'll come down to the judges. I have it possibly 4-1 giving Silva the round in which he stunned Ortiz, even though Ortiz wound up coming back and taking him down. That was a big strike. That might have won over the judges. But Tito racked up too many rounds, and I expect Tito here to win the judges' decision.
Now, Tito's feeling pretty good about things as he parades his way around the octagon walls.
It's so eerily different with the Japanese crowd because they're so quiet. And that helps the building, I think, of waiting for the judge's decision. Yeah, Ortiz looks happy. He feels pretty confident about it.
McCarthy brings both fighters to the center of the ring. We will find out in a moment who our new middleweight champion is. Tito thinks, he's just not yet certain.
判定の結果を申し上げます。ジャッジ西49対47、ジャッジ鮫島49対46、ジャッジ梅木49対46、以上の結果3対0でティト・オーティス選手の判定勝ちです。
And Tito trying to understand deep in his heart. All right, I know they're speaking Japanese. Is it me? Yes, it is, Huntington Beach bad boy. Tito Ortiz is the new UFC middleweight champion.
UFC ミドル級チャンピオンになりましたティト・オーティス選手が
He's paid his dues. He's taken those experiences, took them to heart, learned from them, improved from them, and Tito Ortiz is now the middleweight champion.
Mr. Sakata of UFCJ will present the belt to the man who is now the new champion, Tito Ortiz. There it is. Congratulations to Tito Ortiz.
それでは UFCJ 代
Well,
表
he certainly
坂
has
田
a bright
明より
future.
チャンピオンベ
We
ルトの
wish
贈
him
呈で
well
す。
here, and we want to see him again.
Mr. Sakata puts the belt around the waist of Tito Ortiz. See if we'll
それ
get
で
an
は本日
opportunity
UFC ミ
to
ドル
hear
級チャン
from
ピオンになりました
Tito
ティト・オ
Ortiz,
ー
our
ティ
new
ス選手より
champion.
皆さんにコメントをいただきたいと思います。
That
ティ
belt
ト、
looks pretty
チ
good
ャンピオンにな
on
った
him.
今の感想は？
Arigatou gozaimasu. I worked very hard for this to make this belt happen. It continued from the very beginning when I first started in actually 95 when I beat Jerry Bolander, but it's gone nothing but uphill since then because I have a tremendous training camp with John Lewis and Colin Yamamoto from Punch Out Kickboxing in Irvine. Wow, Joe Moreira, John Spencer, all my whole team that helped me work to get this far, man. It was a lot of hard work. And one thing, Sal Garcia for being my manager and making things happen. And I dedicate this to my girlfriend, Kristen Nicely, actually my fiance, who's been with me from the very beginning and put it up with my shit from the whole beginning of the start. And one more thing, my sponsors, Ron Hackins from Spanky's, support me 100%. Dave Thomas from Speedwear, Puma, LA Kickboxing, Huntington Beach, all the guys in Huntington that supported me from the beginning, Sha Sha Shoes for having the best kickwear in town. That's it. Black Flies too. I can thank everything, a lot of hard work. Thank you very much.
とにかく今の競技を始めてから
Now let's go back first to round number 3, partner.
Now, Tito just missed with that uppercut, and Vanderlei just missed with that roundhouse right.
But he did not miss with that right there.
Didn't look like a lot, but it definitely stunned Tito. He took off trying to get some distance. Silva didn't give him much room, and he was able to connect a couple more times before Tito tied him up and stopped the barrage.
We saw a lot of this tonight. This is from round 5. Lots of ground and pound.
Tito's a great wrestler, great takedowns, great power, great speed, great technique. He's the middleweight champ, Mike.
He is also backstage with our James Wormy.
Thank you much, Goldie. We have crowned a new middleweight champion of the world. His name is Tito Ortiz. Tito, congratulations.
Yes, I'd like to thank Ultimate Fighting Championship to let me show my skills in the octagon. If it wasn't for them, I couldn't show it on the streets, and so I came in the octagon and did it. Now I became a professional athlete by doing this. I am now the world champion, so guys better look out. There's a new cat on town.
Certainly there is. Tito, you said all week this is going to be a war. You knew it was. It was. What was it like in there? Back and forth seesaw battle, throwing a lot of leather.
God, Vanderlei was tough, man. He was one of the toughest guys. I kind of smother him with my size. A lot of these guys can't really handle the size of myself. And I actually took it very well towards him. I mean, he couldn't stop anything I did, my shots. Actually, I believe in the second round, I hit him with the right hand, and I thought I knocked him out. He went straight to his belly, and it like scared me, and then it never stopped. So he continued. He caught me with one shot, and I'd be able to compose myself and came back and came out the victor.
Tito, you've always been a person to set goals, and you've done that, and now you're the middleweight champ. What is next?
Actually, I'll be getting married June 17th to my beautiful fiance, Kristen Nicely. And
what's it like being here? What's it like winning the title here in Japan, Tito?
It's a pleasant pleasure to give it to all the Japanese fighter. I mean, all the Japanese guys to see me show my talent, and nothing better than Japan to win it in. But I did it for everybody in America, everyone in Huntington Beach, California. This is for all you guys.
The biggest cat on the block. His fiance has a new ring. This guy's got a new belt, new middleweight champion of the world. Tito Ortiz, back to you guys.
James, thank you very much. A job well done by the third member of our broadcast team. He will be part of our activities on Friday, June 9th. We will begin things at 9 o'clock from the Five Seasons Center. Heavyweight title bout between Kevin Randleman and Pedro Hizzo. Lightweight title matchup between our champion, Pat Miletich, and an opponent yet to be announced. Don't forget, for the greatest in fight news every day, SEG.com, your website of choice. And for the best of internet talk radio, IATA.com. We had a wonderful evening tonight in Tokyo, Japan. It started out this evening with the lightweights, Laverne Clark and Koji Oishi. And Clark again, fists of fury, not overwhelming, but still victorious. He will be heard from again. Second fight of the night, a good one between Minowa and Joe Slick. And Minowa had the big kick that ended the night for Joe Slick. Heavyweight matchup, Ron Waterman need his way to victory against his Japanese opponent, Satoshi Honma. A big and important victory for Waterman's UFC career. We then moved into the middleweight division. Remember, Eugene Jackson had a case of the flu the last 72 hours, and it did show as he was submitted by Kakuta. And Kakuta forces Eugene Jackson to tap his first loss inside the octagon. The highly anticipated debut of Marilla Bustamante was not a disappointment, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is what he specializes in, and it was a submission in which he was victorious inside the octagon for the first time. And then finally, the middleweight title on the line. Tito Ortiz and Wanderlei Silva, two young men deserving of this opportunity. They exchanged blows in the second and third round. This time, connecting in the second was Tito Ortiz. And in the end, there is your new champion, the Huntington Beach bad boy, Tito Ortiz, the middleweight champion of the UFC. For Jeff Blatnick and James Wormy, I'm Mike Goldberg saying sayonara. See you June 9th.